area of now pulling away from Port St. Lucie. I mean, when I say it's moving away from Port St. Lucie, you would think that Port St. Lucie would be okay, but there's another cell working into Port St. Lucie from Stewart. One is gone, another one replaces it, and that's why we have the flash flood warning for, I'm just going to say the entire Treasure Coast until 6:30, and on the current track here, that's likely going to be extended well past that too. But this storm here, which is, as Michael said, working from Port St. Lucie into Fort Pierce, and almost into Vero, and Lakewood Park too, obviously, very close to, you can see the rotation with that one. That does not look good. There it is right there. So this storm is moving into downtown Vero Beach. So if you live anywhere in Vero Beach, this is a confirmed tornado. See, it's shaded purple. Anywhere in this area, get in your safe room. There's rotation and signature showing up on the Viper radar too. This is a very, very dangerous storm. Get inside your safe room and stay there. You probably won't have to be there more than 15 minutes. It'll be north. Eventually it gets up towards Sebastian, around Johns Island. This is an extremely dangerous storm. This one, confirmed tornado, working into Vero, downtown Vero. I mean, this is a big populated area here, all the way over into Orchid Island too, and then off the coastline.
And Steve, to the degree you can, understanding you're getting so much data and pictures coming at you, but
it's unbelievable.
I've never seen anything.
I've covered a ton of hurricanes here. I've never seen anything like this.
And if you're able to stay with us, and we're going to keep Steve up and just cut in as you need to, but I believe we have Sheriff William Snyder, Martin County, on the phone. Sir, can you hear us?
I can, Michael.
Sir, we have Steve Weigel, our chief meteorologist, so much is happening. He may have to cut in over you as you're speaking, but from Martin County, we know things are happening so quickly. Give us an overview of what you've been seeing, what's going on, damage. We hope, heaven forbid, any injuries, but give us an overview right now, what's going on, what you've seen personally, and where we are.
I'll start off by saying we have had injuries. They're minor so far. We've relocated multiple families. We have tornadoes have been on the ground all over Martin County. I couldn't even tell you all the places. I've never seen anything like it. We have trailer parks hit. There was a tornado moving laterally.
We're looking at one of the manufactured homes hit around Colonial. Just took the roof right off.
Colonial, that's what I'm heading back there now. I was there earlier, picked up half a trailer, moved it all the way 2 streets over and dropped it on another trailer.
Steve, feel free to jump in.
Looks like that tornado moved. That tornado moved east, northeast into the Monrovia area. I'm sure you saw it on your screen there.
Yep. We have Steve Weigel here, Sheriff. Steve, you heard the Sheriff say, Steve said, I've said it. And Tanya, we've talked about it. Steve's covered, and I've chased more storms than I can count, and I have never seen the volume of tornadoes today. Steve, thoughts or questions for Sheriff Snyder?
There's more coming, and I know you've been telling people just stay off the roads. I'm sure that's still a recommendation. Have you had reports of a lot of flooding too? Because almost the entire Treasure Coast, Sheriff Snyder, has a flash flood warning in place.
See, we haven't seen tons of rain yet. It's typical in front of a hurricane. Squalls are moving through. We do have some ditches that are filling up. Right now, it's these tornadoes. It almost feels, not to be hyperbolic, but somewhat apocalyptic. There's just so many tornadoes. We can't respond to all the damage.
And of course, now we're going to have our own issue across 5 counties, including yours. We've got debris all of a sudden from tornado damage, and then we've got straight line winds coming in later tonight, Sheriff.
Yeah, we've had just about every kind of damage from a tornado you can get. I'm on US 1 now. There's debris in the road. There are power lines down, poles tilted over. We've had to call in a whole new extra crew to give us a hand out here.
As Steve is looking, what is your, again, urgent plea to residents of Martin County right now?
Well, I think the idea of sheltering in your home, being alert, and then getting into a safe place in your house, but please stay off the road for Pete's sake. We've got to get ambulances through here and fire trucks.
We cannot say it any more plainly from longtime veteran Sheriff William Snyder, Martin County, who's seen just about everything. So when somebody with his expertise and background saying, please stay off the road, listen. Sheriff, any other thoughts right now as you continue to survey the damage in Martin County and brace for what's ahead tonight?
Yeah, this is just the beginning of it. The wind's just picking up as we speak. I'm in a very heavy rain squall about a mile north of Hope Sound. It looks very dark out there. I don't know if Steve is seeing any tornado activity, but it's extremely dark.
Sheriff, on a slightly, it's a tough note right now all across 5 counties, but what confident or calming note can you give right now for Martin County residents? You talked about the fact that you all have seen a lot, you're prepared for a lot, and you'll be able to move out and do a lot, but all of us can help by staying off the roads. Talk about that aspect so we can give people something to hang their hat on right now, what's been a very hairy afternoon.
Everything in South Martin County is getting pummeled right now. Palm City is getting hit around 47th and Field, which is the New Monrovia area. We have some areas we cannot get back into. The trees are down. It's extremely difficult for the first responders. So the less civilian traffic we have getting jammed up and having to turn around, the faster we'll be able to get back into these areas.
Sheriff Snyder, we appreciate it. Steve Weigel, continuing to track things so quick, it's almost impossible to keep up. Sir, we know you have huge tasks ahead of you. We know you have people in place, but again, your message is one we'll continue to talk about throughout the night. Please, please, wherever you live in our 5-county area, stay off the roads for your safety and for the benefit of first responders who are doing heroic work and have an awful lot ahead of them tonight. Sheriff William Snyder, Martin County, we so appreciate your time. Call back any moment or time when you might have an update in your busy schedule.
All right,
Hey,
Steve.
good night, y'all. Take care.
Thank you, Sheriff, very much.
Steve, you mentioned before that we've never seen this before. We've covered so many storms. How long is this going to continue? Is this throughout the night?
Well, we may get into a little bit of a lull coming up in the next hour. I've been watching, actually I can go back a frame here and show you the trends. Once this feeder band, I mean it's an enormous feeder band, but once it pulls through, there is a little bit of activity southwest of the lake. So we should get at least a little bit of a break from this as these storms here push away. I think these should be gone in the next half hour to 45 minutes. There's a wider view. And in behind that, I mean, there are more feeder bands that could strengthen. There are a couple there that just came off Fort Myers and Naples, so we may get a couple there. I want to bring in James because, you know, we talk about the wider picture, but James, we really have to focus on communities here and the rotation that we're seeing and the confirmed tornadoes, because we just have to get more people aware that there is a dangerous weather situation headed into their communities. It seems all over the place. I think the sheriff said about, I mean, we covered Hurricane Irma together, and we sat there on that Sunday afternoon, and it was dozens of tornado warnings. This is a 10 to 20 times that, and there are a couple that
one after another.
Yes.
This one is multiple all at the same time.
Yeah, and you've got a couple of really concerning areas that I want you to focus on. Vero, I believe.
Yeah, let's pinpoint exactly. Again, we're diving into the storm here and showing the velocities. This just gives us an indication of where that tornado may be, and it kind of sticks out right here. Even if you don't know anything about this product, you can see something's going on right here, and it's moving up from Florida Ridge, South Beach there, maybe just to the west. The wind's definitely picking up on the Barrier Island there, and this may skirt just east of Vero, or at least be close to downtown Vero, right on the waterfront there, and then across the causeway onto the Barrier Island as this is going to move through. Now, this is moments away from coming in. One scan, this thing jumps like 5-10 miles, so it's moving that quickly. So if you live in the Vero Beach, Nevins, Gifford, Johns Island, Orchid Island area, this is, well, Orchid's a little bit farther north, but this is heading right up for you here, and it will quickly move in. It'll pack a punch, it'll come with very strong winds, and then it'll move out. So you need to take cover immediately with this one here. Don't go out to the window and look outside. You want to stay away from windows. If you have your house boarded up, all the better. But still, even if you do, I still would take precautions and stay towards the center of the house, or maybe a closet just in case. I mean, the roof can only take so much sometimes, so.
go back a frame there. That storm that you're focusing on in Vero, the Lakewood Park getting reports of significant destructive tornado with significant damage around Lakewood Park. That is that storm right there that just rolled through. So
yeah, you can see Lakewood Park's right here. So it just came out of Lakewood Park and is now heading right into Nevins and Vero Beach here. So again, you maybe have a couple of minutes, that's it, to take cover in Vero Beach. You want to take cover now, even if your house is boarded up. Get in the closet, get towards the center of your house, maybe a bathroom as this moves in. I didn't want to leave out down to the south too, because like the sheriff was saying, we're tracking 2 now in the Martin County. And this here doesn't look as impressive, but it's only because it's at the end of the radar. But this is moving through Stewart, like right up the river right now, coming out of Palm City, going into North River Shores. Stewart, North River Shores, you're going to see this push up north your way, so you want to take cover with that one immediately. But just on its heels, down to the south, we see another one moving just through Jupiter right now. We don't have any confirmation right here. And this is Indiantown Road. This is starting to pull up into Martin County, and these are live pictures we're seeing of Martin County. Where is this exactly? It's tough to see.
Yeah, I don't see anything. I'm looking, I don't see anything.
Kind of rain coming a little bit over there. But these are the type of things where the other one did this too that we watched on the traffic cams.
That might be it.
Or, it'll lift and then come down and then lift and then come down. We get that all the time. In fact, we tracked it this morning just like that too. But this is probably the one we're seeing, or this one here moving through Stewart. So there's 2 of them moving into Martin County, but there's still this one in northern Palm Beach County, and Jupiter here, Tequesta, maybe just west of Tequesta there, Abacoa area, all looking at least heavy rains. This will move into JD State Park though, and then move up towards Hobe Sound. So Hobe Sound, you have a minute or so, but you want to take cover immediately in Hobe Sound, as this one is coming right towards you too, if it holds together over the next, say, 15 minutes or so. And again, here's the one moving through Stewart, just moving up the river there from Palm City. Taking a wider look, you see, here's the actual storm. So this is the reflectivity, what we normally show you, and this is what rain looks like coming out of the storm. You can see that on the left. What is that from? Wow, look at that right there. So that's the Royal Palm one that we were tracking, and now that cell is the one that's moving up into Martin County that may head up towards Hobe Sound. It's the one that's over, say, western Jupiter right now in the farms at the moment. Stretching down to the south too, Delray, a couple little cells for you, but as Steve was pointing out, look at this. We have a little bit of drier air working on in, and you see a whole lot of dry. There's still little cells.
Wait a second. Is this live? Is this live coming in here?
No, that was from.
Okay, that's from earlier.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Continue. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, that's incredible video there from what was it? Royal Palm. Yeah. So we're going to go to Zitlali right now. I think that's that cell. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cell that worked up in through Martin County.
Yeah, that was from Wellington too. Remember, we were tracking that, so that's some great video from Wellington. And now that's moving up.
Can we get Zitlali on the?
Yes.
Yep,
okay. There she is. Okay, Zitlali. Wow, it is really coming down again. Zitlali, tell us where you are. I believe you're in Martin County, around maybe Colonial Drive, with some damage there.
Yeah, we are in Colonial Drive, the Colonial Heights mobile home neighborhood. I'm going to take you quickly through the damage as this storm is picking up here. There's at least 3 mobile homes who are completely destroyed after a tornado swept through this area. I'm going to point to this one right here. You see they tried to really secure their windows with those wooden panels, but that did not do it. Their front porch was just pushed over their house completely as well. Their home was split in half, and you can see that roof was completely lifted off. I did get a chance to speak with a woman here. She says her 2 parents have lived here for 40 years, and now this is the outcome of their home. And then if you pan over here, Khalil, Photog, we're able to see some of those downed power lines. Lots of devastation happening in this neighborhood. There's about a dozen mobile homes, but just those 3 were severely impacted. But we're going to wrap up here as the storm's picking up. Back to you guys.
Those who are joining us in between dodging tornadoes, frankly, how much more of this do we think we're going to have to leave more?
I do have at least some temporary good news that with that line that has produced, I don't know, 20 or 30 tornado warnings.
Easily.
And probably at least half a dozen actual tornadoes. There is some dry air that's starting to filter in behind that. But my only concern, Michael, is that some of these bands here that don't look like, and they really aren't much right now, they could continue to strengthen. So we'll keep an eye on that. But we should get at least somewhat of a break from this, I would say, in the next 45 minutes, maybe an hour, as this all starts to pull away. But then we have to deal with the storm, obviously, which is still back to the west. And the strongest winds with that are going to be overnight and tomorrow.
Yeah, and Steve, one of the places that you mentioned is in the Wellington area. We have Hani Rodriguez standing by because she's found some damage in that area. Hani, can you hear us?
Tanya, yes. This is actually my neighborhood, the Preserve of Banks Forest here in Wellington. As you can see, there's a lot of damage, a lot of uprooted trees. Chris, let's show this one here. This is one of our neighbors' homes. A lot of police in the area, firefighters, of course. They're going door to door on just checking in on homeowners, making sure they're okay. Mr. Calvin here, we're live on the air. Thank you for letting us get a peek here. A lot of tile from his roof on the floor. Yeah, show us in the back. And as we walk here, just explain again what you told me earlier, what it sounded like.
It sounded like a bomb went off. All of a sudden there was nothing, and then an explosion.
All right,
And
in?
my backyard, my patio back here by my pool just exploded.
All right.
When did you see it? There's
Watch your step there.
So you're saying the 92 mile per hour.
Hani Rodriguez reporting from the Binks area.
And that can be really
in
an
Wellington.
emotional thing because that's her
Wow.
neighborhood. Those are her neighbors.
We want to reestablish the signal and ask Hani. We're praying that Hani's home is okay. I had a friend of ours who had called that I was reciting to you on air as it was happening. We're being hit by a tornado. Their home shaking. This particular person says it looks like they are unscathed, but they said, we're looking at the Wellington tornado, and they said literally they could feel their home shaking, stepped outside, seeing damage. Let us know the second that we might reestablish a signal with Hani. We know she lives in and around that area. Talking to Matt, our producer, want to make sure that while she's doing stalwart work for us, that she and her family are okay, as we hope and pray for so many of you across our community tonight as you look at Wellington right now where this blew through. And there's absolutely, from people who describe it, you heard the gentleman talk about it. People always describe it a freight train. It
Yeah, and that's exactly the way it sounds because I've heard them before. Yeah.
And this is the Wellington
The
tornado.
Wellington. Oh my goodness, look at that.
That's probably a transformer, I imagine, blowing back there as it made its way along, Steve, as you're looking in on this footage, as it blew through Wellington, the Binks area where Hani will try and reestablish contact. We saw the big flash. I suspect that was a transformer blowing.
Wow.
There, but look at that.
That is incredible. So that was a storm. Hani's back, so let's...
so let's go to
Hani,
her.
Hani, just to begin, we appreciate your stalwart duty.
think-
Are you and your family okay? Is your home okay?
Yes. My husband and the kids are okay. I was able to just put a phone call to him. I mean, I'm literally right across the street from my house. He says a lot of damage in the back. I'm going to try to take you guys there after this. We're with Mr. Calvin. He was so kind to let us in his home and show us the back. If you just want to reiterate what you said earlier, it sounded to you like a bomb went off.
Yeah, I was talking to my son-in-law in Boynton. He says, a tornado coming your way. And I said, really? I was watching television. I saw on television they were announcing something near Wellington. And just about that time, my backyard back in the patio here just exploded. It sounded like a bomb going off. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Everything just started flying. And the trees came down and tore the screen out and stuff back here. There's my screen door.
A lot of debris in the pool, too.
Yeah.
And you actually have a lot of damage to your roof as well.
Yeah,
a lot of your tiles flew off.
Tiles are off, yeah. I have to.
And I know I asked you earlier, law enforcement's just going door to door, asking people if they're okay.
Yeah, they came by here to check on us and we were okay.
And your daughter came by too, which is nice.
She did, yeah. And her house is about 2 miles over here and she wasn't hit at all.
Okay.
I think our house caught the brunt of it because it was like an explosion. Everything everywhere.
Yeah, there. The Preserve of Bings Forest. We're right on Wellington National Golf Course, and I know Chris is showing you here the yard. I mean, there's just trees. The screen enclosure here completely ripped. This section over here too. And if you look here, this is the golf. Their home backs up into the golf course here in Wellington, and a lot of these cypress trees, you know, came down. And I want to be careful, but just to kind of give you a look. A big mess here in the yard, and also a big mess out front. There's homes just, you know, as soon as you come into the community, left and right, that have significant damage. So I'm going to toss things back to you guys in studio. I'm going to check on my family and hopefully just give you guys a better look of what, you know, the rest of the community looks like.
Honey, we're exceedingly glad. We know how emotionally invested. Well, it's hard to imagine you're reporting on a story that just barely missed your own home, and so we appreciate your courage in telling the story. Honey, I do want to ask, at least at first glance, you're not seeing ambulances gathered. There's no indication. That gentleman, thankfully, is okay. I know a friend I talked to. Is there any sense that there are injuries or a lot of ambulances showing up, or any ambulances there? What is your sense of that?
You know, Michael, we have seen dozens of fire trucks. Some came into our neighborhood with police, but most of them kept going south on Binks. And so we're trying to figure out if Aero Club Drive, for instance, if they have seen some of the damage. So we'll just have to, you know, start driving it around again and then just figuring out where they all went. But we saw like across the street where the Wawa is, there was damage there. There was a car accident. A car was completely smashed. So we know police were responding to that. Further down Line Country Safari, so further west on Southern, there was also, you know, a lot of police lights and firefighters and ambulances. So we're trying to get a sense of, you know, where else is there a lot of damage. We know Royal Palm Beach also had damage.
Honey, go hug your family. We're so glad they're okay. We wish everybody impacted there. Indeed, all have been impacted across our region on, frankly, this nightmarish afternoon. Tornadoes dropping out of the sky in a way none of us, Tanya, me, Steve Weigel, anybody in our newsroom, in fact, anybody we've talked to, Steve, has ever seen. Honey, we're glad they're okay. Go home, give them a big hug.
Think about if Honey's still there. Honey and I had a conversation 2 days ago about whether she should put up hurricane shutters. And I said, you know, the winds may not reach hurricane strength, but you may have to deal with tornadoes. And it was obviously at the time a very slight threat. But think about it now, Honey. It was the right decision.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that we did. And part of the reason why, you know, for our family, because I have to be at work, as you guys all know, you know, my husband's home with the kids alone, so he said, I'm going to put up shutters, we'll get the practice in, and if something happens, God forbid, you know, I'm not going to be scrambling last minute. You know, we have accordion shutters, so that certainly helps. So he didn't want to be scrambling last minute, and now he's glad he did, because you just never know. And it's just insane how these tornadoes, Steve, you've talked about how they kind of just hop from place to place, and they could have missed, like the neighbor right next to Mr. Calvin's, it was just their tree. Nothing happened to their roof. But then over on his house, he had, you know, all the damage back here, roof tiles just flying all over the place. Right across, we have a big pond, sort of, just across the street, and all those cypress trees are just completely snapped in half.
And that's all flying debris that goes into other houses and other vehicles, and that's another reason why hurricane shutters are so great. Thankfully, you're fine, Honey.
Yeah, and Honey, please tell Mr. Calvin we're glad that he's okay.
Glad that all of your neighbors are. Our hearts glad.
Terrifying.
It's personal for us because Honey's a good friend, but it's also personal for us.
There's lots of homes with damage here.
We care about all of you at home, and all of you are our neighbors and our friends and our community backbone. And so we care about what's happening to all of you, and wish we could wish it away. But all we can do is make sure that we're covering it so you can be secure, hopefully prepared, and as always, we will all be with you as we all clean up from this horrible afternoon and continue to follow a dynamic situation. Hani, I know you'll continue reporting from that area after you have a chance to check in on family. I heard sirens in the background. We'll continue to follow that. And Steve,
Yes, lots of it.
Yeah. Hani, thank you so much. As we'll continue to have you report from there after first things first.
Give her time to go home and hug those kids.
Yeah, go hug the family.
All right, we love you, Hani.
That's the most important thing. Steve, I hear the emotion in your voice. It's real, and as Tanya said, it's real for so many people in our community. And this is why preparations, you don't know
You just
when you're going to
don't.
need them.
You don't, and we had that conversation a couple of days ago whether to put up shutters, and I said, I think with the sustained winds you're going to be okay, but you could get a tornado, and when you say that you think the chances are so unlikely, and here we are today. I mean, it's really incredible. And there's some new video coming in, Michael and Tanya, of that Wellington tornado as it worked through, and that made its way up into northern Palm Beach County. But I think we're going to see a lot more damage. You heard that in Honey's report, the sirens going off in the background. So there's we're getting more reports. We're getting reports of really widespread damage around the Lakewood Park area in just to the south of Vero Beach. So that's another area that we're really concerned about too.
That's the Wellington tornado. That looked like a transformer.
Yeah,
blowing,
Steve. Yeah, it did. There's been a lot of lightning with each one of these tornadoes, but obviously that was a flash from the ground. I think tonight, as the tornado threat diminishes, we're going to see more flashes like that, and it'll probably be the winds of flicking transformers, and it's usually a blue-green flash. We get a lot of reports of previous hurricanes about a flash off in the distance. It's usually the transformers.
And we're going to start seeing those power outages mount geometrically in the next several hours. FPL's pre-positioned, but once this abates, then when the straight line winds come in, they can't work if winds are above a sustained 40 miles per hour. So we're going to have to be patient. They do have smart grid technology. I know where Hani and them live, the lines into the residence are underground. That can be helpful, but you still have distribution stations, the power lines that feed the neighborhood. So we're all going to have to be patient. We'll get FPL on the phone in a little while. And of course, you have the FPL app. You can check on your own neighborhood, but that's going to be part of the recovery story. They've got thousands of personnel assembled in South Florida and beyond, Tanya and Steve. But we're going to have to give them room, stay at home, stay off the road so they can get to it quickly and take care of everything. And now, Steve, we're looking at Stewart.
Stewart, yeah.
Stewart,
there have been so many tornadoes, so many tornado warnings. It's possible that this may be the same tornado that rolled through Wellington that made its way up to Palm City and Stewart. That is a possibility. So far in the Miami Weather Office in Palm Beach County and Broward reporting 8 confirmed tornadoes so far. And here's Indiantown.
Tom Rooney, an old representative, sent me this footage from a friend of his as it rolled through, Steve.
This is the video you just got. So this is around the Indiantown area, and this would have been that in Wellington, when the Wellington tornado went through, there was one just to the west around Lion Country Safari, and I suspect that's probably that tornado there, because one was headed off toward Indiantown, the other one was headed off toward Jupiter and Tequesta. So they were almost on the same timeline, those two, and they were both confirmed tornadoes at the time when they crossed Wellington and Southern Boulevard. I just want to take a quick look at what's going on, because I noticed that a lot of the tornado warnings are now starting to drop off. We still have some activity though down around Hobe Sound and Palm City. A couple of tornado warnings here that I'm watching closely that are working their way toward Hutchison Island, and they're moving quickly to the coastline. I want to zoom in for me for some reason, but there's 2 tornado warnings in effect. We have the flash flood warning in effect until 6:30. That is for essentially the entire Treasure Coast at this point. We've seen a month's worth of rain in some spots, some serious flooding going on, but 2 cells now. I want to step out of the way. I want to get a closer view of these so you know exactly what is going on with those 2 tornado warnings.
And Steve, while you're walking over, I just want to share this real quick. I got a text from here. It hits close to home again. Holly Davis,
yes.
one of the morning anchors, she said, "You just showed video from my neighbor." She said, "I just got out of the closet." So her and her family also had to take refuge too.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. Wow.
So now we have 3 tornado. It's so. It is subsiding in Palm Beach County now, which is, we're getting at least a bit of a break, but the Treasure Coast, we still have, there's Palm Beach Gardens. So,
Sand Hill Golf Club, Palm Beach Gardens, we're told.
Oh, so Sand Hill Crane. So that is, that's
That's
west,
North Lake, right?
North Lake
North
and
Lake
around
Boulevard.
PGA National.
Yep.
Just to the west of PGA National.
Just to the west.
Wow.
And again, that could be the same Wellington tornado, because it took that
kept
track.
moving. Yep.
And it stayed just west of the Turnpike as it moves up to northern Palm Beach County. That's now gone. In fact, this may be that cell here that's working through Palm City and Stewart. There are multiple tornado warnings in effect. The one here looks like it's confirmed, the one that's moving from Palm City and Stewart into Jensen Beach and then quickly up the coastline. A little bit of rotation there with that one that's headed into Fort Pierce. Once this gets through, the wider view shows at least a little bit of a lull here that develops once this line pushes away. In fact, most of Palm Beach County pretty quiet other than some downpours. We'll watch this though, that's on the western side of the lake, because sometimes this doesn't look too bad, but by the time it makes it into our area, again, it's some very strong storms and the threat for severe weather.
You know what, Steve, that that part that we were just showing off of North Lake, somebody sent me some pictures and it shows, you know where Coconut Boulevard is?
Sure,
yeah. When going down Coconut, heading south from North Lake, all the trees are down along that road.
Wow, and
all the trees are down.
That's that path that Wellington tornado took. It went right up Coconut and across North Lake.
Yeah, there's even a picture where it picked up a truck and just threw it to the side.
Wow.
Wow.
This is just a tornado situation that we don't typically see here. We get the EF0 tornadoes that pop up in the summer thunderstorms, but these tornadoes that are on the outer edges of hurricanes, they really, really pack a punch. So this is 95 here, I believe. It looks like a tractor trailer.
Yeah, northbound 95, tractor trailer over. Steve just coming in. And that's on top of the one earlier, I believe.
Right. The other one, there's a mile marker, 114, I think, or 110.
Okay, and then that storm is now starting to work away. So it's headed up into St. Lucie County, so it's starting to pull away. We're starting to see the tornado warnings really drop in the last, I'd say, 20 minutes, but there's still a couple here in eastern St. Lucie and eastern Martin County that will watch for even up into eastern Indian River County, and maybe some issues there. But this is all moving off the coastline. We are going to get at least a brief break from this before we get into the big winds that are to the west.
And Steve, when you and your team say a brief break, it's like a reed in the wind, trying to find something to hold on to. Brief break, we're going to see more tornado activity, or just does it abate at all? Don't want to get false hope, because we all have to keep our guard up throughout the night.
No, I would say there'll still be a tornado threat into at least the early evening. And the tornado watch in effect until 9 p.m. Wow. I don't think it'll be quite as active as we get into the evening as it's been during the afternoon. I mean, it's just about, Sheriff Snyder said, apocalyptic really kind of describes the weather that was going on this morning and this afternoon. Really, really incredible weather. All right, I want to bring in Chris. I think he has some information on. No,
I was going to say, once we get out of that right front quadrant, the tornado threat should greatly begin to diminish. The problem is we're in the middle of it right now. Good news behind me here, though, Steve, is you can clearly see there's only a couple of tornado warnings that remain in effect. Notice there's not much going on across the central portions of South Florida right now near Lake Okeechobee. And if you think back about an hour or two ago, remember this whole thing was warned. So as Steve had mentioned earlier, at least things appear as if they're starting to settle down. With that being said, we still have a couple of warnings remaining for the Treasure Coast just east of Stewart now, Hobe Sound north, all the way up into coastal areas, Martin, Indian River and St. Lucie counties. Okay, so we still have a couple of warnings there, but again, things are beginning to settle down. This cell that came north out of the Stewart Palm City area, now it's all the way up here, just north of Indian River Estates. A lot of the tornado warnings that I'm reading, they're all labeled considerable damage, particularly dangerous situation, just something that you see a lot in the tornado alley part of the United States. You don't see them very often when it comes to hurricanes. A lot of the hurricane tornadoes that you typically see are the smaller ones, the EF0s, the EF1s, but this is a completely different animal. This is such a huge storm, Hurricane Milton. It's had such tremendous wind field that has kind of increased over the last several hours, and just it's a highly favorable environment. What I would suggest here is just assume for a second that everything you see on your radar, whether it's your favorite phone app or you're watching us right now, just assume that everything is going to spin at some point over the next couple of hours until this feeder band can work its way offshore and we start to move into a little bit of a lull. Here's a look at the movement. So again, this is the one coming out of the Stewart area. There's Port St. Lucie there. It's well north and continuing to lift and pull away. And this cell that was near Vero Beach was also a very impressive, we've got video of it, it was a very impressive supercell. I can't confirm the damage. The National Weather Service will be out over the next couple of days, but it looked wide enough to be at least an EF1, if not stronger than that. Now it's all the way up near Sebastian and pulling away. All that remains is just a little bit of light rain. Keep in mind, too, I just want to point out where your safe place is. Remember, it's the center part of your house, all right, interior hallway, a bathroom, away from windows, away from doors. Okay, we will give you the all clear when it's time to come back and get out of your safe place and go back to what you do. But for now, we still have those tornado warnings up, and until they're expired, I would just recommend that you would stay in your safe place. There's the movement there. A little bit farther to the south, we also have a couple more cells. Notice these just pulling away from Palm Beach Gardens, and then right here towards Kesta and Hobe Sound, there's a couple more that we have to get through. And then it looks like things will begin to settle down. Also, mobile homes, okay, it's important. If you're in a tornado-warned area right now, you got to get out of the mobile home. Get in your car. You want to drive to a sturdy shelter, whether or not that's a Wawa or a gas station. Mobile homes get tossed very easily, and if you're inside, you're going to get tossed too. So if you're in a mobile home in this area here, Hobe Sound, through areas just east of Stewart, actually, let's put Stewart in that, north into Port St. Lucie and coastal areas for the Treasure Coast. If you're listening to me now, again, if you're in a mobile home, you got to get out of that mobile home. All right, you're not safe there. If you're in a regular house, you want to be in the center part of that house, interior hallway or an interior closet, farthest away from windows and doors. All right, let's take a quick look, at the center of Milton, which is just now closing in on the Tampa area. Yesterday evening, the modeling had kind of shifted it just a little bit farther to the south, putting the Tampa area out of the worst of the storm surge, which is still going to be anything less than catastrophic, nothing short of catastrophic, I guess I should say. It's going to be pushing to the north like this. We've had a lot of phone calls asking when the stronger straight line winds will develop. That's another thing with this system. So we're in the right front quadrant now. You've got the tornadoes pushing through. Every cell is kind of spinning. You're getting the drenching downpours, rainfall rates over 2 inches an hour. At some point, this will start to work its way onshore. We get out of the severe weather threat, but then we start to see the strong straight line winds with this, the powerful winds, 50, 55, 60, in some cases maybe 65 or even 70 miles per hour. Now those winds will likely be confined to our northern areas, all right, Martin County, St. Lucie County, Okeechobee County, as well as Indian River County. Not so much as you get closer to West Palm. In there, it's probably more like 30 to 45 miles per hour. But there could be hurricane force winds in our northern zones, all right? Those areas are under a hurricane warning at the present time. All right, let's talk about the flooding. We've had a tremendous amount of flooding here. Again, things will start to settle down from southwest to northeast, but we still have a couple of flash flood warnings up. This whole area here is under a flash flood warning until 6:30. Some more advice. Again, if you see a barrier, don't try to pass through the barrier. It's there for a reason. It's there to keep you safe. You don't want to drive through floodwaters, okay? Simply put, you just don't know how deep that water is. It doesn't take much to move your car off the road. And then two, you don't know the condition of the road underneath that water. There could be potholes. There could be little ditches where the road is kind of fallen out a little bit and your car sinks through. So just avoid flooded roads. I'm sorry, go ahead, say that again. Live pictures from Wellington. Okay, here's a look at some of the folks out there. The damage has just been, we've seen a lot of this right now. The damage has just been devastating, okay, in parts of the area. We've had at least, I can count, 4 or 5 tornado touchdowns, at least. There could be more. We're still kind of gathering all the information now, and every single one of them has produced a lot of damage. Even in areas that aren't very heavily populated, we've seen a lot of trees down. All right, with the soil being as soaked as it is, I mean, it seems like it's done nothing around here but rain for the last, 3-4 weeks. So the ground is very saturated. It's not going to take much wind at all to start toppling over these trees. Trees come down on power lines. Now all of a sudden you have power outages. I mean, it's a real messy situation here this evening. Look at some of the rainfall rates with a couple of these supercells that push through, rainfall totals. Now some of this here actually fell within an hour and a half. And we're over 7 inches just north of Vero Beach up into Johns Island towards Sebastian Inlet. We're at 6.6, and then a little bit farther to the south. This includes Port St. Lucie and Stewart. The amounts are a little bit lighter here, but still a pounding with all the heavy rain that we've seen recently. Doppler radar estimates are anywhere from 1 to as much as 3 inches. Here is the Turnpike and 95, so a lot of it is east into the coastal areas around the Treasure Coast. and then a little bit farther to the north as you get up towards the Space Coast. Here's a look at the infrared satellite. It looks like that the storm's about to make landfall, or maybe 5 to 7 hours away from officially making landfall. Still very well defined. The drier air that was starting to work its way in from the north a couple hours ago, it looks like that whole process is shut off. So I don't know if there's going to be any further weakening here. It looks like we're going to see at least a Category 3 storm as it comes on shore. There's Central Florida, there's Tampa right there. Notice the drier air here on the backside. That's going to feel pretty nice as we get into the end of the work week here. Remember, once the storm pulls east, eventually we get in on the wraparound flow, winds out of the north. And again, it's drier. Dew points are a lot lower here across the Gulf Coast states. So at least temporarily, Friday, Saturday, it'll feel a little bit better with lower dew points and temperatures in the low to mid 80s. All right, let's time it out for you. So again, it looks like it makes landfall just south of Tampa, or right around the Sarasota area here as a Category 3. It has winds of 120 miles per hour. It's moving to the northeast at 15, so it looks like it's going to hold that speed here. It will weaken once it makes landfall, dropping down to a Category 1. It's right around 2 o'clock in the morning, and that's probably when you start to feel some stronger winds in our northern zones. Okay, that's when we start to pick up the 50, 60, maybe 70 mile per hour winds, Indian River County especially. You can see the strongest wind speeds are going to be here where the center of circulation passes by. So it's a little bit farther north than where the West Palm Beach television market sits. Then as we continue to fast forward this in time, again, the storm pulls away, drier air moves in, and it starts to feel a little bit better. Here's a closer look at the wind field. Here's a look at the tropical storm force and the hurricane force wind speeds. Here's Vero Beach right here, West Palm Beach. So West Palm Beach sits just a little bit farther to the south from where the real strong winds are, but still strong enough. Again, you're talking about how wet the soil is. It's probably not going to take much of a wind gust to start toppling those trees over. But here's where the really powerful winds are. Central Florida, as we get into, let's go 1 o'clock in the morning. Fast forwarding this, now it's off the coast. Winds are beginning to turn around. This is right around 1 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. There could end up being some coastal flooding here. Maybe a secondary batch of coastal flooding, the storm surge. As the wind turns around, we're going to start pushing some of that water closer to the coast again, and then it starts to pull away, and it looks like everything begins to settle down. So that's what's going on at the moment. Steve, you want me to send it back over to you and get us caught up with the tornado warnings?
Yeah, sure. I have a couple of them that have been popping up. James, do you want to take a look at them?
Yeah, we just had one pop up here pretty much in Indian River County, kind of where the other one was anyways.
And getting James Whelan here on the screen. Chris Sowers, thanks, and welcome to our team.
Yeah.
It's a dubious day.
We're looking at, some of these, so we're still dealing with some along the Treasure Coast, just a little bit longer. It's 6 o'clock now. One of these has already expired, but we still have the continuation of the other one until 6:30. And you see, there's the center here. So they're about to get in the eye wall right along the Sarasota coastline, Manatee County, and even pushing down into Fort Myers too. On our side here, we still have a couple cells left. Notice how, we've dried out quite a bit, and we're going to be in this area here for a little bit, so that'll be nice. But we still can't let our guard down, because although it won't be as rapid succession as it was, there still could be any of these storms moving in from the south that could give some tornado warnings here for us. So Vero Beach had that move through earlier. Immense flooding in downtown Vero Beach. Just 6+ inches of water came down in 2 hours or less. So here's the velocities again, and we see this moving up. So this must be the next named storm, or the next warned storm there, just moving off Hutchinson Island near the power plant there. And you see one that really, that was most likely, see how that flared up? That was probably a water spout. Sitting there just off Stewart Beach. Farther down to the south, this here too, another suspect area. This is just west of Tequesta, moving up 95 in the Turnpike. As you cross over into Martin County, this is moving a little bit farther north. This may, again, head up towards Hobe Sound. We saw that last little couplet move up towards Hobe Sound and quickly move off again. These are still moving really, really fast, like 30, 40, even sometimes 50 miles per hour. Elsewhere here, so here's the warning, and you can see it kind of highlighted in like lighter reds there. And this is once again for Port Salerno and up to Stewart Beach and Jensen Beach. That's for that cell that I just pointed out down to the south, that couplet we saw there. That will quickly move northward. So take cover now here. We just got a little bit longer to get into a safe room, and then things will quiet down. But this is the cell I'm talking about. This was the hurricane or the tornado warned cell, now moving up towards Hobe Sound. And again, that'll go through Sailfish Point and Port Salerno again and Stewart area as it moves generally northward, but maybe with a little bit of a push to the east, and even here too near Indian River States and Fort Pierce at the inlet there, still dealing with some heavy rainfall and probably some gusty winds. Going back down to the south into Palm Beach County, a little bit more going into Wellington, and this time it's closer to the Turnpike now, but these aren't tornadic at the moment. Any of these little ones too, they don't have to look real scary on the radar. They could really just spark up a tornado, but that doesn't look like it at the moment. And then we have a particularly heavy one just offshore, thank goodness, of Boca Raton there. So that one's not gonna come towards land at all. All right, we got some breaking news now. Now let's head over to Shannon and Michael.
James, Steve, thank you very much. Chris, we appreciate it. We have on the phone Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw. Sir, can you hear us?
Just barely. I can barely hear you.
We'll speak up as much as we can. Sheriff Rick Bradshaw, Palm Beach County Sheriff, joining us on
that's a little bit better.
Joining us on the phone. We appreciate it, sir. Born and raised here, have you ever seen the like of today? Give us an assessment of the emergency and the response situation.
No, I would have thought I was in the Midwest with the tornado alley.
What is
It's been incredible.
It absolutely is an apt description. What's the emergency situation and response situation as you know it right now? We know it's fluid and changing, but give us an overview.
Yeah, it is. I'm in constant contact with the people on the road. We're calling more people in and holding over the other shifts. We'll probably go to 12-hour shifts to make sure we got enough people out here in case we get another round of these things. But most of our damage looks like it's out there in the Wellington area, in the Loxahatchee area, out by Lion Country and Flying Cow. That's where the report. Say that again?
I apologize, Sheriff. Please go ahead.
Anyhow, that's where most of our damage has been. We haven't had any reports of a fatality. We know that maybe there was a couple people injured. There was a car turned over. We were able to get those people out, from what I understand. But right now, we're just trying to get everything stabilized, make sure that everything is safe for people around there. I know the power's out, so we're going to make sure that if there's any power lines down, nobody gets across that. So we're just in the assessment time frame right now, making sure everybody's safe and making sure that the area that's affected is accessible to people that need to get in there, the emergency people.
And Sheriff, your message to people tonight, we're going to have a long night ahead. We're going to get straight line winds on top of all this.
The best message I can tell everybody is stay home. There's no reason to be out here driving around. All right? There's nothing to see. All you're going to do is get in the way of emergency services, either whether it's the fire rescue, whether it's us, whether it's medical people. So just stay home. There's nothing to do out here. The other side of that is, if you get out here and start driving around and these canals get swollen, you're liable to drive into one of the canals. So just stay home, take care of your house, wait for this thing to get over with, and then if you want to go look around, that's fine. But, stay home, take care of your own house, take care of your family, and let us do what we need to do out here.
Sheriff, this is meteorologist James Whelan here. We've been tracking these tornadoes here in the studio. Is there any indication of how many homes were damaged?
I don't know the exact number. All they told me was a bunch.
Okay.
And Sheriff, for people understandably get cabin fever, get stir crazy, you just talked about a safety message. Talk about the law enforcement component. People are going to be told to stay home all the way through tomorrow. Some say, I've got to check on my business, I'm worried. And there's always the worry that some people try to take advantage in a chaotic afternoon and situation where we're being told to stay away from the normal rhythms of our life. What is your message to people about what you've got out there to make sure that everything stays quiet and safe?
We're going to have a significant presence out here. That's why we're calling people in from home. That's why we're going to go to 12-hour shifts. So if anybody's got it in their mind, they're going to go take advantage of this situation and go to a place where there's a problem and loot something, all they're going to do is end up in jail, because we're going to be there on the scenes, making sure that everything is secure and getting people to safety.
Sheriff, I know you said you couldn't really make a determination at this point how many homes have been damaged, but
Right.
in terms of calls and dispatches, can you give us some kind of perspective? Like you said, unlike anything we've really ever seen here in our weather department here at WPTV, have you had confirmed reports of tornado touchdowns, and can you tell us a number?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt that they touched down. Now, how many tornadoes it was, you know, given the geographical area, it was probably more than one, and it could be between 1 and 3, given the area that was spread out. But it's some significant damage. There's no two ways about it. And like I said, I've lived here all of my life. I've never seen anything like it.
Does PBSO have its own high water vehicle contingent? How would you coalesce and work and coordinate with fire rescue teams if you have to move out and deal with some of those situations, as we're looking at some of those flood concerns across 5 counties? Give us a sense of that.
Yeah, Michael, I can't hear you at all.
Your high water.
I can hear you.
Your high water rescue team, Sheriff Michael, was trying to ask how many teams do you have at the ready to deploy to respond if needed?
Well, we got plenty of them out there. We got high water vehicles, high water rescue teams, our field forces out there. So, you know, our staff is ready to go. If we got any type of situation where we need to rescue somebody, between us and the fire rescue, we got it covered.
The incident where the car was flipped, you suggested that could have been due to tornadic activity. Is that what I understood correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we think. That's what we think right now.
Individuals okay? Where exactly did that take place?
Well, they told me right now there's no fatalities, so that leads me to believe they got them out of there if there was people in the car. So, you know, we'll know better. We're in the assessment stage, you know, and stability stage right now.
Just to be clear, you say at this point you have no reports of fatalities in Palm Beach County due to the tornadic activity?
Correct.
All right. Sheriff, we will continue and perhaps, and I know you're running around as every first responder and frontline person in law enforcement, fire rescue is doing, but we will give you a call later this evening to get an update. We appreciate you taking time for us right now in this frenzied afternoon. And again, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw, Palm Beach County, joining us via the phone, and we will get back to him later. Thank you so much, Sheriff.
Okay, just everybody needs to know that we'll be out there for you. We'll keep you safe and get to you if you need some help.
Sheriff Bradshaw, appreciate your time, sir. Thanks so very much.
Okay.
We want to give it over to
Thank
Steve
you.
Weigel, tracking, recent tornado warnings that are popping up actively still late in this day. It's hard to believe that we started this at 9:45 and we have not come out of a tornado warning in our 5-county viewing area since then.
And not only that, Shannon, these are not just tornado warnings, these are confirmed tornadoes. So far, the Weather Service in Miami is saying 8 or 9 confirmed tornadoes, and that's just Palm Beach County South. Treasure Coast, that's where most of the warnings were this afternoon. I don't have a number on confirmed tornadoes, but it has to be at least the same.
I lost count. I had so many people in the last few hours sending me videos, old contacts, friends. I literally lost count of the number. The sheriff put it aptly. He said, born and raised here, he said, I thought it was in the Midwest, staring at Kansas-style tornadoes.
And we still have a couple of tornado warnings that are in effect for at least the next few minutes that I want to show you here on the radar. They are working in around Stewart and Palm City and up around Port St. Lucie. Not sure why this isn't zooming in properly, but I want to get down into these communities and show you exactly where the tornado warnings are and how long they will last. So we're talking about areas around Jensen Beach and the Stewart area.
And by the way, Steve, as you're doing that, we're going to keep checking on injury situations, damage assessments. We've got crews rolling out. So certainly Palm Beach County has its share of headaches right now, but we're checking across our entire community, 5-county community.
Water spout just moved over the Jensen Beach Bridge. We got a report of that, and we have video coming into it. It's unbelievable video.
So still what, 3 tornado warnings? One is kind of one looks like maybe another one was just issued along the coastline for Vero Beach. These are all big weather systems that are rolling through. But the good news is that this is the tail end of it, and at least we're going to get somewhat of a break. Once this nudges off the coastline, you'll see the wider view has a lot of dry air in behind this, and just a couple of really light showers. Then we're getting into the main part of the storm after that. But this is the end of that just massive feeder band. I want to check in with John Barron, who is, I believe, in Fort Pierce right now. John, looks like some significant damage in the background.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, absolutely. You can take a look behind me. It's very clear. You could talk about it. We've been seeing these tornadoes popping up all over the place, and an indication that this is exactly what took place right here. Just absolutely sharp. You can hear the emergency sound going off right now from inside, but you could just see the shrapnel and debris just spread across. Look at the power line draped across the road. St. Lucie County Sheriffs are making sure that nobody is passing on both sides, but it's not just right here. Look down the street as well. You can see it just ripped the entire power line completely out of its core and all the way down. So you can see the debris in the trees on the road and making its way all across. And I want to show you the other side as well. You could see it carried through this entire area and down towards there as well, ripping and tearing apart everything in its path on its way over there. So both these buildings right now completely destroyed, and you can see all the debris on the ground. So as you guys were talking about it, we are still here in St. Lucie County in Fort Pierce. So right now we are still working to see exactly what took place, when and how. But as you can see, it's very clear what happened here not too long ago. So the sheriffs are right now making sure that they're here, stopping both ways and making sure nobody is passing through, especially since we do not know if this is still a live wire or not. So we're continuing to follow up on this, but as you guys can see, Steve, you know, this is something that a lot of us are making sure, and the Sheriff's Department is making sure that nobody is in harm's way, especially as we've been seeing so many of those tornadoes popping up.
Michael, you had...
Bradshaw, let me know they're starting to get some information. 12 to 15 homes in Wellington and 15 plus in Loxahatchee so far impacted in one way or another by the tornado outburst today. That from Sheriff Rick Bradshaw. Again, 12 to 15 homes in Wellington and 15 plus in Loxahatchee. We're talking the Binks area in Wellington and 15 plus in Loxahatchee so far. That coming in from his staff and teams. That from Sheriff Rick Bradshaw, who was on the phone with us just a few moments ago.
And that doesn't even include Royal Palm Beach.
Exactly.
Which actually we
That's
know
just
there
an
was
early
a touchdown.
estimate.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And then that was that same tornado, more than likely, that had worked through the area about 2 hours ago, maybe now. I mean, they all kind of blend together, as I said, but still a couple of tornado warnings in place along the coastline of the Treasure Coast. These will drop soon. The storms are almost off the coastline, but still a significant weather threat from Hobe Sound, eastern Martin County, up in along St. Lucie County, along Hutchinson Island, Jupiter Island, and then a little farther north all the way up around Johns Island and areas very close to Vero Beach at the same time. So some big weather in that area. Let me zoom out here and try to get a little bit better idea for you. You're a little closer to these areas that are affected right now. So a couple of tornado warnings right on top of each other. That includes Stewart, the Jensen Beach area, around parts of Palm City, and up around Fort Pierce too, and up around Vero Beach. So those cells, and look at the rotation with that one as it rolled off. That would be around Port Salerno and Rocky Point, along US 1 and just to the east. So that's the one cell that's now starting to roll off. Once that gets offshore, which it looks like it is now, nudging off, that tornado warning will be discontinued. I think most of these will be discontinued at 6:15. And a little farther north, we have the one over Fort Pierce, all the way up into Vero Beach along the coastline too. But it looks like that cell has now started. Now 6:30 it says for this one. This is that cell that is working around. It's fairly close to Fort Pierce, but more Hutchinson Island. That is where we're watching some activity along the coastline. So once that nudges off, there's a lot of dry air that's filtered in behind this, and we'll start to see at least a little bit of a lull in the strong winds and the tornado threat. And the tornado watch continues until 9 o'clock tonight. Hopefully that might be discontinued before that. But look at all this dry air and really nothing as far as threat for tornadoes. Just no activity going on. The wider view also shows dry air all the way down through Homestead. So that tornado threat is really starting to drop. Does it reform later? It's possible. As the storm moves closer, though, that the tornado threat will drop significantly. The watch is in effect, as I said, until 9 o'clock tonight. Michael.
We're going to go to Zetlali Salachi in a moment, but getting this in from Martin County Sheriff's just coming to me. We've had our first call. We've had our first call, a lot going on out here.
Coming in from Martin County Sheriff's.
Martin County Sheriff's. We've had our first call of a house fire involving a generator, and also goes on to say burning tree, multiple injuries reported, not yet confirmed. Tornado appears to to have hit multiple homes in the burning tree area, according to this report from MCSO. We're trying to confirm all that, but it's one more piece of what's been a widespread, chaotic, damaging day, and we're trying to get more information about possible injuries there, Steve. It's the best I can tell you coming from MCSO.
And Steve, we want to welcome in Zitlali Salache. She's standing by in Stewart with a report from there live. As we bring her in, Steve, why don't you take her Q&A?
Zitlali, so to set it up, where are you located right now, Zitlali? I know you were in Palm City earlier. Are you still there?
So we were actually in the St. Lucie County area, and then we came over here to see some damage that we were called for. We did our live shot, and right when I was about to interview Martin County Sheriff William Snyder, we actually spotted some of the debris spinning, and which was that tornado. So immediately we got into our vehicles, and right here I'm at the Windmill neighborhood. I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera over just so you guys can see that damage that immediately after we finished the interview, we hopped into our vehicles and came over to this area. This is just devastating what you're seeing here in this neighborhood. There's several down trees, light posts, and some of these trees were even in some of the cars. So immediately the sheriff was just asking everybody if they were okay. But that was one scary experience, let me tell you. Thankfully, as far as now, from what we heard just by talking to a couple people around here, seems that the majority is okay. There is, according to law enforcement, a report of a woman who broke her leg. But yeah, just take a look at all these broken trees, down trees. These are some townhomes. So it's just, you know, quite devastating to see. It's really hard for us to drive through here. And I don't know if the camera's showing every single detail as the eye would, but just incredible what you're seeing out here.
Where did you say this is the Windmill neighborhood in Martin County? Where exactly are you?
That's correct. It's called the Woodmill Pond Complex. So they're townhomes. And as you can see, there's people out here that immediately after the tornado swept through, they came out to check on their belongings, making sure that everything's okay. But even the shutters over here were impacted. So you're able to see a lot of that damage here. But like I said, thankfully, everything seems to be, for the most part, okay for residents here in Stewart.
And you said you got caught in, it sounds like you got caught in the tornado. We were talking earlier, I mean, maybe 2 hours ago, and I gave you a heads up that there was a tornado headed your way. Was that tornado?
No, so that was when we were in Port St. Lucie. Luckily, we were able to escape that one, but this one was the closest I've ever been to a tornado before. We were literally about to interview the sheriff, literally shaking hands, taking out our gear, when immediately I pointed it out and he says, yeah, get into your vehicles. And we really tried our best to get away from it. And then right 5 minutes into that is when we came into this neighborhood, and we just, as you're seeing, these several downed trees out here, and it's just quite devastating, to be honest with you.
So I live in Martin County. I'm not quite sure where this neighborhood is. Is this off Martin Highway? Is it a little farther south and closer to Stewart?
So it's near the Colonial Drive complex. If I want to be a little bit more precise, I don't know if the area Mariner Sands is a little more,
most people
it's a
know
little
where that
south
is.
of Port Salerno, I would say.
Right around, closer to US 1.
Yeah, a little south of Port Salerno.
Okay, all right, wow.
Exactly.
So yeah, there were multiple tornado warnings in that area at the time. Well, we're thankfully you're okay. I know it's been an unbelievable day on the Treasure Coast. Thankfully, we have a little bit of a lull. We have a couple of tornado warnings, but the storms have really nudged off the coast. So it's going to improve, at least, I'd rather say a lull, because now we have the tropical storm and potentially hurricane force winds that are going to develop overnight and into tomorrow. So thank you, Zitlali. That's very interesting, because that was the path of one of the tornadoes as it moved through eastern Martin County. And we talk about it, Michael and Shannon, and we cover them, but when you see the damage, that's when it really it hits home, especially Hani's report from Wellington too, where the damage went right through a neighborhood.
Incredible. And it is one thing, Steve, usually our teams, our reporting teams have time after these things pass through to get out and assess the damage. And to your point, you had advised Todd Wilson and Zitlali, hey, something else is coming up right on its heels. So we had dispatched our teams after the tornadoes had passed, and there she was about to begin an interview with the sheriff, and she had to jump right back in her car. That's the kind of day this has been, and Hani, of course, you know, brought it right home.
Hani Rodriguez, by the way, just sent me a note. The Binks area, the Preserve, Wellington, hit hard. The sheriff said a dozen homes or so, 12 to 15 so far, early assessments damaged. Hani just sent me a note because I know a lot of you, it was a heart-rending moment when our colleague who's reporting on a story because we're worried about all of you in the community and her home is across the street from bad damage. Hani said, our home is safe, thank goodness, just their screen enclosure. Their two beautiful children and her husband are safe. A lot of people there damaged, but Hani, they are okay. She's going to continue. She's an intrepid anchor reporter here, like all of our teams, but we are relieved to hear that. It very frankly brought tears to our eyes to hear our
it's fantastic to hear.
So that's good
especially
news there.
seeing the damage at the neighbor's house.
Just we had another friend in that neighborhood. It's the classic story. I'm reporting on the air. She's texting me. The tornado's about to hit. Our home is two-story home. Our home is shaking. Her husband, the tornado was so close. I mean, literally saw it pass by, and then they dove into their safe room. What the heck is going on?
And you know, and Steve, just to your point, just 2 days ago, she was asking the same question. So many people in Palm Beach County were asking, and Martin County, frankly, and even, you know, other counties that hadn't been hurricane warned yet. Right. You know, almost 4 of our 5 county viewing area had not been hurricane warned. Should I put up shutters? And, and we, you know, how do you advise that when you're not hurricane warned?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I mean, it's a personal choice when there's a tropical storm or a tropical storm watch issued, whether you put them up or not. And I had a long discussion with Hani about, you know, she was wondering, should I put up the shutters? Sure. And I said, you're probably okay as far as the winds and the sustained winds, but we get these tornadoes that pop up, and she decided with her husband to put them up.
You're looking at Palm City, by the way, and Steve, stay with us for this conversation, although we know you've got a million duties, so if it pulls you away, but we have Christine Weiss, Martin County Sheriff's Office, PIO. Christine, can you hear us? Christine?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Christine, thank you for joining us here on WPTV. Give us an overall assessment, which I know is tough to do because minute by minute it has been changing, but try and give us a sense of the battered landscape and where you've been responding. First, give us the overview.
Well, the overview is, as a former reporter and a current PIO, I have never seen what we are seeing today. I have never seen calls for tornado damage in multiple tornadoes, and I've covered a lot of these in my past history. We are going from call to call. We are utilizing every resource that we have. Right now, our hardest hit seems to be Burning Tree in Mariner Sands, where there are reports of multiple injuries, traumatic injuries, head injuries. We've deployed our Bearcat, where we're going to actually start to do those transports using the Bearcat. Many of our deputies have chainsaws. There are structures that the fire rescue can't get to, so we're trying to remove trees and chainsaw the trees to give access. There's down power lines. So our guys and our ladies are actually working tough situations too because of the down power lines. So we're trying to get to everybody. From what we understand and what I'm hearing on the calls is that multiple roofs were blown off in that area. Now across the street, which that area is very, very close to the Woodmill Pond, which you just did a report on where the sheriff actually saw the tornado move through there. So I don't know if it was that one tornado that ripped through everything else, but Mariner Village across the street from Mariner Sands, we couldn't get in there either because of debris blocking the access road and down power lines. So we're doing our best, and that's why we're asking everyone, please don't go on the road. These down trees and down power lines are everywhere. And what we're seeing is 1 minute you walk outside and it's breezy, there's a lot of light, and then it turns. Then you can hear what they call that train sound, and you don't know if it's thunder or you don't know if it's a tornado coming. So I've never seen anything like this before.
And Christine, are we understanding correctly, there are trees blocking entrances to communities where you're getting phone calls for assistance because people have lost or been impacted by this storm?
Yes, and that is the incredible work, and I have to say, of Martin County Fire Rescue and the deputies. They have chainsaws, and they're cutting through the debris so we can respond.
And we're looking at video, Christine. Obviously, you can't see it, but some of the tornado activity in the Martin County area today, you and I have been in touch. This is tape This came to us a while ago, but as you look at this, and as you said, old reporting chops that you have, veteran reporter and now veteran PIO, just everybody we've talked to today, from sheriffs to people such as yourself, to our chief meteorologist, Shannon and I have been around many a block with storms, have just never seen the intensity and the volume of what's happened today. So you've got crews rushing to, are already on scene. Burning Tree, Mariner Sands, one of the hard hit areas. Elsewhere, so injuries, we don't know how many. What are some of the other key areas you're dealing with? And then Steve may want to jump in with any questions that he has, of course.
Well, the Salerno area, which we've also had tornado activity over there, but we don't have any reported injuries over there. The Mariner Sands area seems to be where we're having the head injuries. We did have a report of a woman, the roof blew off and it blew her through the front door. So those are broken bones. I don't know exactly how many injuries we have, but they're trying to move them to the hospitals as quickly as possible. I do know that I heard two separate head injuries, and we're speaking of, people that are in their 70s, in their 80s, and they're bleeding profusely. So we're going as quickly as we can to try to make sure that we can access everyone as quickly as we can. And again, it's all hands on deck. When I tell you the sheriff's answering calls, all of the guys and all of the ladies are answering calls. Sheriff-elect is answering calls. We're just all trying to, and it seems like for us that the storm isn't even here yet. This is the storm before the storm.
Steve?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, with the storm is still almost 100 miles off the coast of Tampa and Fort Myers. So we still have that to go through. Ahead of we expected a tornado threat today, but nothing, like you said, Christine, like what happened. And when you talk about the damage around the eastern, like Port Salerno in that area, and we're not even sure if it was the same tornado or another tornado that followed right in behind. It was literally one tornado after another in the same area, falling in the same line, like just driving down a road. It was really, really incredible to watch.
Well, it's incredible to even have to call, because at one point you say, well, I think that's a tornado. And if you call something a tornado that's not a tornado, you're quickly corrected it's a water spout or something. But my guys are saying, no, these are tornadoes. They're coming right towards us. And I just never heard anything like that.
Christine, how many of those calls did you get? Too many to count, we know. Can you give us a ballpark?
Of my guys seeing the tornadoes coming their way?
Yeah.
At least a dozen.
Right.
You can hear them on the radio saying it's coming, it's moving, it's coming this way.
Yeah.
And it's almost surreal to listen to this on the radio, because these are so quick. At least with a hurricane, the steady rains, the steady winds, it's happening. These tornadoes are just, we don't know where they're coming from.
Christine Weiss, we thank you so much for your efforts. You've been getting us footage to help us get an assessment on the ground today. Your team's doing heroic work, as first responders always do. And again, the plaintive cry from Christine, from so many others, please, 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 for your own safety, be off the roads. There's just too many dangers out there, and we have to get past this storm and allow teams at MCSO, every law enforcement agency, every fire department, power workers to get to work. So Christine Weiss, we'll be in touch later, but we thank you. I know we have one of our reporters in the field standing by. Thank you so much for your time, Christine.
Megan McRoberts is joining us now from Fort Pierce. Megan, where are you located right now?
Megan McRoberts coming up on the feed. All our crews, of course, battling the elements. So we'll have Megan here just in a moment. There we go. Megan?
Okay. You guys got me?
We've got you.
Go right ahead.
Just making sure here.
We've got you, Megan.
Okay, yeah, so we are located right off of Kings Highway. Thank you, Michael. So this is a pretty rural area, but there are homes along the area. We stopped here because it's just such a show of damage here. I want to show you behind me. This is a business called the Southern Trust Company. It's kind of like a building supplies company. This is their main gate, toppled over here. And as you look around, all this metal sheeting came off from the building. Even in the distance here, you can see where the trees are just sheared from the wind speed. But as we look around, I want to walk you around. It just gets worse as we go. Fencing, of course, down, more metal roofing that is peeled off. In the distance here, it appears there's a work truck. I hope you can see it, just kind of toppled over onto its side. And you look back, I mean, so much of their equipment is damaged. But take a look at the main building. So damaged here, we can't even tell what it size was. You can see the remnants of the word Southern Trust Company, a few of those letters gone, but the building just completely flattened there. It's hard to see on TV, I know, but as you look back into the business, trucks are damaged, wood has fallen off of trucks, the metal roofing, again, just peeled off so effortlessly. One more thing I want to point out to you here, I'm going to walk through. These are metal, or concrete rather, light poles. That concrete pole just snapped right in half. It looks like it was effortless. You could just tell the strength of the winds here, right?
That is amazing.
Caleb, let's point toward Kings Highway just to show you some more of the wind damage. Of course, more of the metal sheets are around. Look up to the power lines. You can see where the metal roofing even flew up in the air, got caught in some of these power lines. We have a lot of down power lines along Kings Highway. I want to tell you a story. We tried to go a little further down. If you know, like Al's Family Farm in this area, it's a well-known produce company. From the distance, we could see that they had some damage. We were trying to get there. In doing so, we were blocked by debris in the road. But at the time, there was a wife, or a man and a woman, a husband and wife. They were walking. They said that their home was completely damaged, and they were just walking down the road because it was the only way that they could get away. We, of course, didn't roll on it. It was a really sensitive time for them. The woman was actually visibly in shock. We gave her some water, and she was very upset because she said when they were in the house, they actually felt like they were being lifted when the storm came through. They have chickens and they have cats. All of their animals, they say, are gone. They don't know where they are. They're presuming that they've died, and they don't really know when they're going to get back to their property. So it's unbelievable devastation out here. We're only starting to see some of it. There's some areas that are hard to access, but we're doing our best to do so to give you the biggest scope of this. But just an absolutely devastating day for people. So many who just say they can't believe how many tornado warnings they were and how many of them actually came to fruition and caused significant damage.
I'm curious, you're around Kings Highway, so are you close to Lakewood Park?
That's where we're trying to get. Lakewood Park's not far from us.
Because we've had numerous reports,
the closer,
of significant damage in around the Lakewood Park area.
I heard from law enforcement that they're worried there could be dozens of homes that are damaged. I was hearing upwards of 40. Again, that's coming from a good law enforcement source. But again, they told me that even some deputies are struggling to get into these neighborhoods because of the roads being blocked. And there's a lot of downed wires. Of course, that's a big concern. You're being careful that these aren't live wires. So everyone's trying to be cautious, and you've got to give it to those first responders who are really doing their best right now to try to get into those worst hit areas. And of course, this area, St. Lucie County, being one of those.
I feel like we're covering the hurricane once it's passed. I mean, the hurricane hasn't even made landfall yet. This is really surreal.
Yeah, you just took the word out of our mouth. Surreal, Stephen and Megan.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, you mentioned that, are worried. There's so much debris out here now that wasn't here just a couple hours ago. And if the wind speeds are going to keep picking up, people with already damaged homes here in Fort Pierce are thinking, how much worse is it going to get? And where do you go if you weren't thinking of going to a shelter, but all of a sudden your home is destroyed? Making those quick arrangements now to think about where can we even go to be safe as the conditions get worse. The couple that I talked to, someone from FDOT actually had pulled up, walked up to their home and helped walk them back, help them get around wires. So, I mean, it's all hands on deck trying to provide the help that so many need right now.
It all started about 9:45 this morning. It seems like it's just been one supercell after another supercell, and it swept up through the western portions of Palm Beach County, impacted all 5 counties, really, of our viewing area.
I do have some good news. The tornado watch has been discontinued for Palm Beach County, and all of the current warnings have been dropped. As far as tornado warnings, they're all gone at this point. So that is, a few round of applause there. So. Thankfully, we're done with that. We obviously still have the hurricane warnings for St. Lucie, Indian River, and Okeechobee County, and the tropical storm warnings, but the tornado warnings at this point are done.
All right, Steve, thank you as we continue what will be a long night on air and online. And if people are starting to lose power, but we hope if you still can hear us and see us that you're charging up phones and take our app, our WPTV app, WPTV.com. Many of you will be able to stay on with our on-air coverage as we continue to assess the situation, including with our colleague who both personally and professionally dealing with a lot right now.
Connie Rodriguez, you were up on a scene near your very own home about an hour and a half ago. I know you've had a chance now to dip in on your family, make sure they're okay. What can you tell us? And our hearts and prayers have been with you all afternoon.
Thank you, guys. I mean, I gotta say, as Chris and I were driving into the neighborhood, just really sad because this area is so beautiful, and as
Unbelievable and difficult time for law enforcement.
By the
first
way, the only
responders.
damage we saw,
We've got Hani back.
some of my neighbors. Guys, can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Please go ahead, honey.
Some of my. Yes, they can hear me. She said we can go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Are we
honey.
good, Chris? But a lot of my neighbors, Shannon and Michael, if you guys can still hear me, there's law enforcement here. We had firefighters come through. There's exits on some of these homes. There's a car, Chris, if we can kind of zoom in on that. There's a car that's completely smashed in. You can see it there by trees. Windows have been blown out. The home next door to them, you can hear the saw. They're cutting up trees. A lot of these cypress trees that make our neighborhood so beautiful, they're all literally snapped in half. And once we're done with this live shot, this neighbor here told me that law enforcement has asked him to evacuate his home. He didn't put up shutters. He's doing it now, but he said he wished he had, because some of the debris actually broke some of his windows. And again, they're just trying to figure out now where they go next. And a lot of the people I've talked to, they're saying, you know what, yes, we've had damage to our homes, but we are safe, and that's what's most important. And a lot of the neighbors are out here. Some are curious, some are helping, their neighbors, so that's always wonderful to see. Just behind this street, we live right on Cypress Park here in this Wellington community. We're being told that a lot of cars have been smashed in by trees. So, and then there's another community right behind, or right next to ours, I should say, that also had a lot of damage. So we're going to try to get there and give you, a better picture of that. But everywhere you look, it doesn't matter what street you look down, there's a lot of damage. And it really is just, the community just doesn't look like the community that we used to live in. And it's going to take time to clean up, for sure.
And I'm sure it's very heart-wrenching and shocking all at the same time for you to be there covering your very own home. We're watching behind you. You were talking about people being evacuated, those neighbors helping neighbors, loading up suitcases as they're having to evacuate, as Milton is approaching on this very evening and into tomorrow morning. It really has been surreal.
Honey, we know.
And when Steve said, the warning has been cleared, that's got to be such relief, because a lot of these people were expecting another round tonight, Steve.
We definitely have a break of a few hours here before we start to get into some of the stronger winds with the hurricane.
You're talking the straight line winds.
Yes.
Body of the storm
And
itself.
now we have these downed trees and this glass and the debris from the crushed, cars that will be wrapped up in that.
Hani Rodriguez reporting for us through what frankly has been a personally traumatic day, as it has been for so many people. At least a dozen homes there, Hani, we're understanding at first count have been damaged. According to Palm Beach County Sheriff, number may go higher.
Yes.
And injury reports, we had not heard of any in Wellington just yet, but all of that is part and parcel of what's going to have to be sorted out, not only across Palm Beach County, but all of our communities. Hani Rodriguez reporting for us. Steve?
Yes, and Michael and Shannon, as I said, the tornado warnings have come to an end. We still have obviously the hurricane warning, and we have the tropical storm warnings, the hurricane warnings for St. Lucie, Indian River, and Okeechobee, and the tropical storm warnings are in effect for Martin and Palm Beach County. But you can see that incredible band of rain and tornadoes, literally a dozen tornadoes at least, starting to push off the coast. So all of those tornado warnings and the tornado watch, at least part of it, for Palm Beach County has been discontinued. I believe it still continues for the Treasure Coast, but you can see that threat has really diminished. I just don't see we kind of run out of energy for this thing to really get anything fired up, at least for the next few hours. Now, there are still bands back to the west that we'll have to keep an eye on. This is the strongest part of the storm as it moves in, but that tornado threat is starting to drop in a big way, obviously, with the watch now discontinued. And as the storm moves closer, Michael makes a great point, because we'll have an issue with straight line winds in some of the storms that develop, where those are the winds. Instead of rotating and with funnel clouds and tornadoes, these are winds that come down from the thunderstorms, and they can do considerable damage too, because they slam into the ground. they can go 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and they can also do a lot of damage. In fact, in hurricanes, a lot of hurricanes that we get here in Florida, we get more straight line wind damage than we do tornado damage. So that'll be an issue tonight. And with all the debris down around our area, it's a significant concern that that debris is going to get picked up and become projectiles. I mean, we have spent the last week telling everyone to make sure to clean up your yards, make sure any items that might blow around in the wind, secure them, get them in your garage or in your house. And here we go. We have all this debris now, and the storm hasn't even made it into our area yet. So Michael and Shannon, that's going to be a big, big concern tonight and tomorrow, especially for the Treasure Coast, where we're expecting some significant winds. I mean, we have a hurricane warning, so we could get up to hurricane force winds in some spots.
Time that out if you can very quickly. We're going to get to Ethan Stein in just a moment and Okeechobee, but can you time that out, just because I do believe you hear from Juani, we're weary, right? This has been a long day for all of us. Most especially the people who've been deeply impacted, and they're still going through the rescue effort right now. Time it out for us, Steve. When is our next round coming our way? And then when do we start to experience either those hurricane force winds or those tropical storm force winds?
Yeah, that'll likely be the closest approach. That'll be after midnight. And the hurricane's going to make landfall just after midnight and then track across the state. And this eye here is going to take a little while. It'd be 8 in the morning and it's still over Melbourne and Brevard County. That could be the peak winds for us as the winds shift from the southwest to the west and really race in. My other concern with a west wind, so our strongest winds, by the way, in this hurricane will be likely from the west. And that's not the typical wind direction that we get here. Our prevailing winds are southeast. So there may be a lot of areas that don't see a lot of winds this strong, and we may see additional debris get picked up and trees go down that don't typically see a strong westerly wind like we're going to see with this storm. So it tracks across the state. 8 a.m. It's starting to push off the east coast. The winds swing around to the west, and we get a very strong west wind. Tropical storm force, potentially hurricane force, and that's why the warning's up for parts of our area. And that'll be on Thursday as we get into the morning and tapering off as we get into the afternoon. It may be late, Treasure Coast, along the coastline, it may be late afternoon before we start to see a big improvement with those wind gusts.
And so, and Megan pointed out, Steve, so now we have debris issues here with straight line winds coming, hurricane force in some parts of our community. People who some hours ago when this day started never thought they'd need to go find shelter, suddenly are either being treated for injuries. We're talking about the Mariner Sands community, big worry there. We're going to be keen in on that. Or at minimum, we're saying now suddenly I do need to find shelter. So it's the, I hate to say it, it's the perfect storm. And I do not to you at home mean that glibly at all. It's the unfortunate, imperfect compilation of so many circumstances that we're dealing with. And as you said, Shannon, everybody's weary. So the best message with that, Steve, because we do have to go through the night, we do have to be prepared. So for newcomers to our community, as you so wonderfully pointed out some hours ago, to people who've been here a long time, Steve, best messaging you can get, because we do have to get through it together tonight and tomorrow. So to the degree you can, with all your years of experience, help us encapsulate how we all do that and march through this together safely and to get ready and to get back and get rebuilt.
Well, if you still have power, and I'm sure there are a lot of power outages, but if you still do, think to yourself, the power is going to go out at my place, so I'm going to need to be able to keep up with the very latest. So you're going to want to pay, if you have extra battery power, so you charge your cell phones, charge your tablets, charge laptops, whatever you might be able to watch our coverage on, so that you can track the storm and not worry about that issue, because a lot of people out there at this point probably don't have that option because the power is now out, considering the damage that we've seen up and down the coastline, not only Treasure Coast, but Palm Beach County too, Wellington, obviously, and Loxahatchee, and even around the Gardens, really, really hard hit. We saw the flashes and the transformers around Wellington too. So you know that wherever that was in Wellington, there's no power there right now, and it probably won't be fixed tonight either. So
if I could just jump in on that, I did get a text message earlier, and they said, "Where can we find you on the radio simulcasting?" And you need to be on our app at this point. So if you have power at the moment, please go ahead and download the WPTV app.
Yes.
That's where you find us through this storm. Make sure your batteries are charged, because if you lose power in the next 24 hours, this is where you can find your storm coverage moving through these evening hours and into the critical time tomorrow. So go ahead and grab that app if you still have power, download it, and that is where you're going to find us. We'll step by step walk you through what's to come in the next 24.
And we're going to want to go to Ethan and Okeechobee, but one good bit of hopeful news is FPL has hardened the system so much since the storms of 04, 05, Francis and Jean here, and then of course Charlie and Ivan, other parts of the state, and then Wilma in 05. This smart system, so they're able to see where power's out. The problem, Shannon, is that some of the significant power outages today may not necessarily have anything to do with distribution stations or lines. They're homes or manufactured homes or a combination that suddenly can't take power.
Correct.
Because the home itself is destroyed, not the power distribution. Right. So all of that's going to have to be sorted through, but FPL will get out quickly. They're able to zero in on areas where power does go out. We'll be keeping close watch on that.
They have staging areas throughout all of South Florida and the Treasure Coast. They were very well prepared. The drones can fly in and really dissect these areas where people are trapped, or they're trying to get wires that have been compromised before they can send personnel in there to get these rescues done. So they're hard at work already as we have this bit of a break. As Steve's mentioned, one place hard hit, we checked in a short time ago, is Ethan Stein.
Okeechobee County.
Well, you can see all the debris behind me. It's from a tornado, from one of these mobile homes. Officials tell me the home was actually all the way over there, and the storm brought all the debris over. Officials tell me 2 people were sent to the hospital with injuries. We do not know their condition. We do not know their names at this point, but you could see how just the damage here. I mean, you could see that people really lived here. You could see clothes, a roof, a washing machine, storage equipment, 4x4s. I mean, it is really just breathtaking. Emergency crews, they were here even rebarbing the fence that was taken off. That way they can contain the cattle. That way it doesn't escape as well. I mean, you could see the groceries that are around. Some of this debris was even up against the road. That's how strong this storm was and how much it moved all the debris around. It's really a breathtaking scene. And again, we're mentioning this because there's still time to get to a shelter, if you can possibly at this point when this runs, is that these mobile homes are extremely dangerous, especially in these high winds. This is probably not a quarter of a mile from the last house we were at, and people have been telling us that there's more damage up the road that we'll be going to next. One of the people who came to set up this wire fence and try to help this family, he told me and tried to describe the damage that he saw.
I mean, it's, this is not even the aftermath. This is the pre-math. We don't even have the hurricane that's came through yet. So you see all this damage that people were, already, their homes are already wrecked out, and we don't even have the big hurricane that's come through yet. So, I mean, this could be, catastrophic by far. One of the worst hurricanes we've ever seen in Florida.
And you can see it's not just the house that's over here as well. You could see the trees lying down, almost if someone grabbed the top of them and just pulled them straight down. A really breathtaking scene with the strengths that these storms can be. And we'll send it back to you guys in studio.
All right, we're going to zero in. Our reporters have been they've been doing such great work sending in taped reports. We'll zero in on those locations. This is the Aero Club, the Wellington area right now. Video coming to us.
Apparently a vehicle, we heard from Hani's report a few moments ago, we saw one vehicle just crushed in someone's front driveway. We understand we're about to see some video of another vehicle either lifted and flipped, but you can see the metal that's been ripped off, wrapped around trees, as we get this slow drive down the heart of Aero Club out in the Wellington area.
As the name implies, but if you're not familiar, for somebody literally with hangars behind their homes for jets or other fixed-wing aircraft and the like, and a destination that's known far and wide among those who enjoy that privilege. But as they drive through that area, looking at the damage, the first indications of damage in Aero Club, that like so much of Wellington today, the preserve area and other areas, taking a horrible battering from the tornadoes that have roared through all of our community, our 5-county community this day, as we see
law enforcement responding,
and lights. I saw. I couldn't make out but clearly, first responders. You see the lights flashing in the distance there.
It's just a real mess. And you heard Christine Christofek out of Martin County, Christine Weiss a short time ago out of Martin County talking about the Herculean work being done by law enforcement. You saw law enforcement in Honey Rodriguez's shot responding to that scene, and now in another location out in the Wellington area. There's just so much to respond to.
I can't quite make it out from the vantage point with my eyes. I almost thought they were out on the runway checking that, but we'll get back to that. Now looking at the acreage damage there. My goodness. Steve had talked to us about earlier, he'll be back with us. These tornadoes stayed on the ground. These aren't tornadoes that touch down and suddenly pop back up in the sky. Steve, as we look at the damage here, these are tornadoes that just stripped them bare, denuded the trees, and these are tornadoes that stayed on the ground for how long?
Some over half an hour. This morning's tornadoes that were recorded down around I-75 made it all the way into Belglade and then north of the lake. And some of them that we watched this afternoon, I'll be completely honest with you, there were so many tornado warnings that we were covering. It was difficult to tell if it was the same supercell, the same thunderstorm that was producing the tornadoes that we saw in Palm Beach County in the Treasure Coast, because they moved north so quickly, and it was just one after another. I mean, there were 2 or 3 hours where the entire Treasure Coast was under a tornado warning in one respect or another.
Sandhill Crane video here.
Taking a look at this video right here. This monstrous touchdown here. Sandhill Crane is Palm Beach Gardens golf course, a community golf course open to the public. Just opened that beautiful new par 3, but also home to Bay Hill Estates, Mirasol Avenue. This is a popular. You're looking at a golf course, the stretch of golf course here. This beautiful course
Ibis very close.
Ibis, right in this area.
Steve.
And that was, by the way, that was likely the same tornado that went through Wellington, because I was tracking that one, and it went through Wellington, and I was telling people, it's going to go through the acreage and then have an impact around North Lake and Sandhill Crane.
What conservatively would you think, Steve, based on what you're saying? We know that there'll be assessment teams come in, and you'll be part of, a lot of that reporting down the road. But when you look at what's happening here, at minimum, the kind of winds being generated out of these tornadoes would to the novice, you got to think way over 100 miles.
I'm getting some reports that I don't have video or photos, but I've heard some reports of cars on roofs, which would, that's well over 100. That's like EF2, EF3 stuff. Like Shannon, you covered with the tornado that we had in the gardens and the car that flipped over at US 1 and PGA Boulevard.
Steve,
there's your car on the roof.
There's your car on or nearly on.
So you're well into likely an EF2 at that point.
Which is a wind speed of what? Roughly speaking.
Well, what are we talking about? 110, 120 at least?
At least.
I think that this car that was picked up and
like
flipped.
a toy.
And I think we have a similar image back to Aero Club. Oh, this is inside a home.
At Aero Club.
Ripping through this.
Just the level and the depth and breadth and scope of damage is
goodness.
Shocking.
We're seeing it with you at home play out. We have not seen this video before, so it's coming in to us. Our editors have pieced it together, but this is the first time we've experienced it as well.
Steve,
heartbreaking.
So it really is.
So an EF2 is 111 to 135 for a wind speed. I have all the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale down, but we just don't see tornadoes this strong here. It's just, even in hurricanes that approach us, it's just very, very rare to see tornadoes this strong, even on the outer edges of the storm.
And all an outgrowth of Hurricane Milton. It bears repeating.
Yep. And then we're still waiting for the storm to come through. The winds are starting to pick up, but we're looking at the strongest winds tomorrow morning from that, because it's going to take another 12 hours before we start to get into seeing some of that wind speeds here. And I'll just, here it is here. So it's still well offshore. It looks like maybe part of the eye wall is starting to work in now. We're at 7 o'clock. This may make an earlier landfall if that's the case. And then here's the good news for us. This is all dry. We'll have to watch this band in the last couple of frames here. This is a feeder band here. Sometimes as they push to the coast, they get enhanced a little bit, You know, obviously with the tornado watch drop for Palm Beach County, there isn't too much of a threat, but that's something that I'll keep an eye on for any rotation in that. But once it gets a little closer to us, we lose that threat for tornado development. And then, as you said, Michael, it's straight line winds at that point that could do the damage.
And Steve, again, as we come up on the top of our next hour, in terms of those straight line winds, which I know for you at home you're saying it's hard to even talk about, but what are we looking in terms of the winds through our 5-county region based on all the projections you're seeing right now?
Well, I would say we could get upwards of 60 to 70, maybe 75 miles an hour on northern Treasure Coast, Palm Beach County, Martin County, with the tropical storm warning in place. Probably a lot less than that, like 40 to 60 miles an hour, maybe a little bit stronger at times. As the storm gets close, so we're talking likely tomorrow morning and early afternoon as the storm starts to make its way off the coastline. I think overnight, I think around sunrise could be an issue with very strong winds too. Hopefully we don't get the brunt of this hurricane in the middle of the night because we've done that before, and that's always traumatic too. Because
Right.
you hear sounds in your house, and your mind starts to wander and wonder, okay, what is exactly going on outside? Hopefully that doesn't happen in this case, but for northern Treasure Coast and Okeechobee County, we could get some strong winds that again do some damage. Like we have seen today with the tornadoes.
Steve, stay with us. We have some live reporting from Okeechobee County.
We have Ethan Stein joining us once again. We just saw a tape report from you a few moments ago. Ethan, you've changed positions or locations, or are you still in the same spot?
No, we've changed positions. We're about, I would say, maybe a quarter, half a mile up the road from those two locations we were at. The county has told us that they believe that they have 2 tornadoes that touched down. We're in Dixie Ranch right now. This, though, it blows away the damage that we showed you earlier. You can obviously see these tree branches in my hand, and they're all over the ground. And just take a look at this house. I mean, it is breathtaking. It really is. And I'm being cautious and checking my surroundings in the back of my photographer, because if you look along the fence of like properties like this, you could see the debris, and the wind as it's picking up, it's rattling and it's moving around and blowing around. And you guys have been touching it as a whole. Milton hasn't come through this area yet, and all this has the threat to become projectiles and whatnot. And it's just heartbreaking. I mean, check out that image over there. You can see the trailer that just tipped over there from the sides. And again, there's just debris scattered all over the place. Now, this is a village of, almost ranch-styled homes. They don't look like mobile homes. They look like ranch-styled homes to me. And you could see just the destruction and the devastation. You can see that red trailer over there just completely wiped out. And as you follow along, I want you to really take a good look at that blue building. You can see it's just caved in almost from one side. And the roofs are tearing apart, and there's like 5 or 6 streets just like this going across, and we've seen damage everywhere. I mean, it's breathtaking. I mean, I've covered a lot of these tornadoes back when I worked in Iowa. I have not seen damage like this one from a storm in a long time, and it's just everywhere. I mean, it's hard not to find damage driving around this area. We don't know if this was from the same tornado that we talked about earlier that you guys saw us from. We don't know if that's the second storm or whatnot. We do know that we've seen people who've sent us videos who have shown us that we did see a funnel cloud that was moving at this point. At this point, emergency management has told me only 2 people were sent to the hospital at this point. I mean, very super fortunate at this case, because I mean, so many of these houses have damage around. I mean, it's really unbelievable, guys.
Ethan, place geographically, where are you? If you have any roads or anything that can give us a little better sense of precisely where you are.
Yeah, it's basically northwest of downtown Okeechobee.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we are. So like downtown, think where the lake is.
Sure.
Yes.
And then there's like a main street of shops and whatnot. If you're going out further north, there's like one road, I forget the highway name, I'm not very familiar with it. But I mean, this entire community has damage all over the place. And what's odd is, and I always find this about these storms is we'll drive past a house and there's nothing there. I think we even drove past this area when we were looking for more damage originally. And we literally was like, oh wow, the storm didn't hit that area because those houses looked fine. But further back of this community is where the damage is. As you can hear that wind picking up and whatnot as I'm looking around just in case debris starts flying our way or whatnot. It was really shocking. We actually got back to the hotel where we met someone who works at the hotel and said, no, our neighborhood was hit, you gotta go. And she showed me the aerial photos where you can kind of see the destruction path that was taken. And we, jumped in our car and came over and just blown away with what we're seeing here. I mean, there's just debris all over the place. And the trailer, even that's behind me there, I mean, you can see the force of these winds, are super strong.
Ethan Stein from Okeechobee County, and I know do we have Jamie and Vero and T.A. Walker, Royal Palm Beach? All right, so we have T.A. Walker available.
TA there, I just want to point out on this live shot with Ethan, you can see the clouds start to roll in, and in his microphone as he's speaking to us, he's grabbing his hat. We're hearing the increased wind speeds, and so to your point, Ethan, and we're going to see this play out throughout the evening as we start to see these winds start to pick up. The debris that's out there is going to be another issue that we have to deal with.
Exactly the concern, albeit perhaps on a somewhat...
It's going to become projectiles when the storm blows through.
Right.
It's the same kind of thing they've been worried about after
It just
Helene.
is. I mean, I'm not looking at the camera because I'm waiting for like one of these pieces on the fence. I mean, just look at this over here.
You
can
need to get to
see
safety.
how it's all lined
to
along the fence.
safety.
And I'm not sure if you can hear it on my microphone, but like you can hear the rattling noise.
Right. We want you to
and that's kind of what has me nervous and looking around.
Right.
Because I'm waiting for something to just peek up. But you can see street signs all over here. And we've been talking to the other guys about this. It's not the flooding that officials were concerned about. It's the wind and the damage that it can cause some of these homes here.
Ethan Stein, thank you, and make sure you all know where your safe spot is and your shelter as well, as you'll be reporting through the night, but please safely so. Safety first for you and your teams out there, bringing us first-hand reports. Ethan Stein.
I want to get to T.A. Walker standing by for us in Royal Palm Beach. We know there had been a confirmed tornado touchdown in Royal Palm Beach. We had not gotten eyes on that scene. I believe that's an image coming in to us from Royal Palm Beach. T.A., are you with us?
I am, Shannon. Listen, this is Loxahatchee Groves. This is a shipping container and that I'm shining a flashlight on. I don't know if you can see that a bulldozer is actually under it. As Elvis takes us around, you can see a construction our yard that's just rattled with damage. There's power lines that are bent over. There are signs that are bent over. There's a shipping container in the middle of the road. When we went over to the Wawa, it's completely shut down, no power at all. We are coming up on the shipping container. You can see it's just thrown into the road. As we turn around, you can see this complete trailer. Thank you, Elvis. This trailer that has been flipped upside down. You can see trees that have been ripped from their roots out here. This is Loxahatchee Grove on 441, where Culver's is. It's kind of a new development in this area. We're driving the wrong way, and we understand that, but we're just trying to show you what we can. You can see debris in the roadway right here. I did talk, Shannon, to Roxanne Stein, former news anchor for WPTV. She says out in Wellington, there's a lot more damage. We're going to pull around real quick so you can see what's happening here in this shopping plaza as we get to the Wawa. There's a car wash here that's seen multiple damage that we're pulling into right now. And there's debris on the ground. There's signs that are bent over. I mean, this is all brand new. So this should be up straight and standing, and it's just not. This is that car wash that we're pulling through right now. And as we turn around shortly, these power lines over here, Shannon, are tilted towards 441. And here we go. There's a shopping cart, and there's not in the roadway. You can see debris on the ground. Elvis is kind of helping me, being the pilot, and showing me things that are down as we're coming. And we're walking up to this wall screen. It's dark. There's no power at the Wawa. Being here in Loxahatchee Grove.
T.A. Walker, and bear with us at home, because in this kind of weather, it would be a surprise if there are not intermittent signals at times. We want to turn from Palm Beach County now to Vero Beach.
And our Jamie Ostroff, she's been planted, I believe, at either a police location or she is at one of the shelters. We don't have your exact location. Where are you now, Jamie?
Yeah, we are in Vero Beach. We're right off of US 1 at 14th Avenue and 23rd Street. I am not a meteorologist. I don't want to say for sure this was a tornado, but something incredibly damaging happened here along a nice swath along the US corridor, or US 1 corridor here in Vero. And we've got a lot to show you right now, so let's take a breath and walk through it. As you can see here, we've already got crews out that have been cleaning a lot of tree debris from the roadway. You're looking at the Vero Beach Community Center right now. The front sign in front of the business is damaged and a lot of big, I mean, really big tree limbs were down. So authorities are really taking this opportunity right now in between, bands of Hurricane Milton, if that's what we're getting hit with right now, to get this stuff out of the way, to allow for more opportunities for these roads to be cleared, for this debris not to pile up as conditions deteriorate and as more rains come down and need some place to go. So let's take a look here down 14th Avenue, where the road, as you can see, was flooded much higher than here earlier in the afternoon when the rain was really coming down. You're going to see this vehicle here really driving through the deepest of that water right now. Just to give you an idea of how high it is, still really a not great idea. You can see it coming up over the hood of that large SUV right now. Do not recommend driving through these floodwaters. So we're still seeing patches of flood and getting reports in these back neighborhoods off of US 1 around Vero Beach of flooding. I mean, the rain here was intense. We were trying to get some images and just take everything in as it was happening. And at one point we had to just stop and seek higher ground because we knew if we spent too much time in one location, we weren't going to be able to move from it. It's been really incredible. We are also keeping an eye on some power outages along US 1. That has been an issue right now in some spots where I am. There does appear to be power at the very least from this emergency generator behind me. The traffic lights are working, though I did see some traffic lights downtown. I sent some images back for you earlier this afternoon of the traffic lights, not just powerless, but dangling there. So some really scary situations. People taking those warnings seriously, sheltering right along with us through the worst of this weather here that we are experiencing and perhaps yet to experience as the evening goes on and Milton draws closer. You see the city truck driving away with lots of tree debris, going to clean up the roadway here. We are also learning from Indian River County that bridges to those beach communities are starting to close. The Barber Bridge is closed now. The 17th Street Bridge also closed right now. The Wabasso Bridge still passable at this moment, but given the conditions that you're seeing right here on these roadways, I do not recommend traveling unless you absolutely have to. And what I can tell you right now, thankfully, is there have not been any reports of injuries so far, but we are seeing and hearing first responders crisscrossing the city, responding to all sorts of incidents.
Your live shot, Jamie, if you'll stay with us here, is quite remarkable. We have emergency crews out trying to clear the debris of what we just got hit with so that we can be prepared for this next round. They are out scrambling in between the bands, but it does really reinforce, if you are new or newer to our community, this is not typical. We usually, when we button down for a hurricane, we get one event. This is a cycle that has come through, related to Milton, of course, but this is tornadic activity that has been so severe. No one on our meteorology team, no one who's worked this, South Florida Treasure Coast market has ever seen this in our past. And so you see them scrambling, trying to clear the debris. All the more reason, please stay off the roads. There's no reason to take this gap in between activity or action that we're seeing in the weather to get out on the roadways. And anyway, you saw that car almost got stuck.
It's as though we had all prepared for a four-quarter battle, and suddenly, before the opening whistle, we get battered beyond belief and now have to recover so that we can go through what's coming ahead. We are joined now by our WPTV Meteorologist Chris Sowers, a new face with us, and we really want to salute having you aboard here. Sadly, you'll remember your first day for
Right.
a lot of sad reasons here, but thank you for bringing your expertise to our audience. Welcome, and what do you have for us?
Thank you. My pleasure being here with you guys. And well, you know, as Steve had talked about earlier, it looks like we're going to move into a little bit of a lull now. Whether or not we see another hefty round is still yet to be determined, but things have settled down quite dramatically over the last couple of hours. I'll tell you what, if we can go over to Weather Source 3, please, and I'll show you. There we go. So the big question here is what's going to happen from this point on, all right? Where is the next feeder band going to move? And right now it looks like, as we set it in motion, this is 7 o'clock. There could be a couple more storms. We talked about this earlier this evening. Everything was going to try to spin. It was just the nature of the environment we were in. There was a lot of what's called speed and directional shear with this system. I mean, Milton is just a monster. At one point, it was one of the strongest Atlantic basin hurricanes that we'd ever seen. I mean, so it was just a tremendous wind field that had set up around the storm. So everything was going to try to spin. I've never seen so many tornado warnings in effect at one time like we had earlier this evening. I believe I counted 9 at the peak of this thing. So we have a couple more cells potentially developing over the next, let's say, well, right about now, actually, just west of Lake Okeechobee. They will lift to the north, but notice it doesn't quite have that punch like the first round that came through, or at least that's what the modeling is suggesting. Remember, it's the right front quadrant of the hurricane where the most significant damage usually occurs because you tend to get tornadoes popping in that quadrant. You also get that big storm surge too. So we were in that right front quadrant. Well, now that the storm is getting ready to make landfall, the right front quadrant is pulling away from the WPTV television market. So that's why things have settled down. We'll see if anything else flares up that starts to rotate again. Again, the modeling showing potentially a couple here or there. This is 8 o'clock this evening. And then as we continue to run this through, that is actually going to be the bottom part of where the eye wall is as that sweeps through overnight tonight. And then, of course, the big concern from that point on is you've got all this damage everywhere. You've got power lines everywhere. Will a lot of this damage be just picked up from some of these winds and kind of tossed all over like projectiles? So, you know, as we've been mentioning over the last couple of hours, you really just don't want to be outdoors. Just kind of hunker down and settle in tonight, and then maybe tomorrow we could all out and about and we kind of survey the damage together. But here's a look at the wind speeds. This is 10 o'clock. Notice the direction too. It's still out of the south or southeast. Then everything will start to shift as we get into the overnight hours. So this is 5:30 in the morning. There's the eye right there. All right, so as that passes by, that's where the strongest wind speeds are located. We talk about hurricane force winds, 74 miles per hour or greater. That's where they sit right there, around the eye. The eye is the calmest part. The eye wall is where you pick up the strongest wind speeds there. So this is 5:30 in the morning. Winds are out of the south. We've got 50 to 55 mile per hour wind speeds. Remember, it's our northern counties that are currently under the hurricane warning, meaning the National Weather Service is expecting hurricane force winds within maybe the next 10, 12 hours. So it's going to be these counties up here. We're well north of West Palm Beach. Again, this is 6 o'clock in the morning or so. We'll continue to run this thing through. There goes the eye right there, passing well to the north. All right, now we're talking about winds close to 60 miles per hour from Sebastian south through Fort Pierce, Stewart a little bit lower, 44. But again, remember, there's damage all over the place here. It's not going to take much wind to just toss everything around. So that's what the big concern is going to be moving forward. Continue to push this and advance it along. Winds will start to shift out of the west, as Steve had mentioned earlier, once the eye begins to pull away, and then eventually out of the northwest too. And then we'll have to worry to see what happens along the Treasure Coast. Could we see a little bit of a storm surge there as the wind starts to pile the water on shore from the Space Coast down through the Treasure Coast? Here's a look at some of the storm reports that we've seen up to this point. An unofficial report of 92 miles per hour. That was at the North Palm Beach County Airport, just a tremendous wind speed there. 66 miles per hour near Vero Beach, which also picked up more than 9 inches of rain, and that fell in a little more than 2 hours. We had the flash flood warnings there. There were reports of cars stuck in the road. It was a real mess. A semi was flipped over on I-95 near mile marker 109. We actually aired some pictures of that. I mean, it was just completely tossed. Multiple homes were damaged near Wellington. Tornado report touchdown there that lifted all the way up towards the Stewart area. And then 7.41 inches in Stevens Park, Indian River County. That's a look at some of the rainfall totals. Here's a look, when you look at the total storm reports, look at them all here from the National Weather Service, and we didn't even put the Wellington ones in. For some reason, they're not showing up on the LSRs, but there would be more down here to the south. I mean, look at all the tornado reports. There's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, there's at least 12, maybe more. That'll be 13 right there. Now, they're not all officially confirmed, but we have pictures and videos of many of them on the ground. So there's the likelihood that I would say at least 75% of these are going to end up being confirmed. These are flash flood reports as you get into Martin, St. Lucie, and Indian River counties. And then we have a little bit of wind damage reports beginning to show up too. Here's a look at some of the tornado reports that came in from emergency management officials here. They report a confirmed tornado flipped. That's the Interstate 95 at mile marker 109. So we're right here. That's this report here on Interstate 95. There's the turnpike right there. Next up is going to be this one right here near Port St. Lucie. Multiple reports of a tornado near US Route 1 and Cove Road. Reports of branches down and minor damage to a home. A little bit farther to the north, getting up into St. Lucie and Indian River counties, they had another tornado report. This one we received photos of trees down, roof damage, window damage in the Newport Isles subdivision. Time estimated was a little bit earlier in the evening, right around maybe 5 o'clock or so. And then we have even more, a little bit farther to the north. This one here is another tornado report, multiple reports of a large and destructive tornado. This one actually took a little bit of a wedge shape, and they're the kind of tornadoes you see usually in the heartland of the nation. They can be the real violent ones, at least EF2, sometimes stronger than that. Significant damage occurred near the Lakewood Park area. A little bit farther to the north here, another one, observed tornado with trees down near Orange Blossom, or near the Orange Blossom neighborhood. So again, the Treasure Coast just absolutely pounded here over the last couple of hours. Here's a look at the infrared satellite shot. Milton, Hurricane Milton is just now getting ready to make its way on shore. Let's say it's about an hour or two away from making landfall. Still looks pretty healthy too. We had a little bit of dry air starting to work its way in from the north, but now it looks like that process is shut down. The storm will continue as a Category 3 later this evening and overnight tonight. Remember, tomorrow morning, wind shift. All right, out of the north eventually, and that's when we'll start to see a little bit of water pile up on the Treasure Coast as well as the Space Coast. So right now, the severe part of this is done. We'll have to see whether or not the second feeder band develops more severe weather, but severe part of this is done. Now we're going to wait and see what happens as the eye crosses over central Florida and we start to pick up those hurricane force winds.
We have a breath.
I'll send it back over to you guys.
Take a breath for just a few moments, or whatever time we're given until you're tracking this next feeder band. Chris Sowers, appreciate your coverage and welcome to the team.
As we look at damage as day gives way tonight, Brianna Nesprall joining us near the Avenir area. Brianna, tell us what you're seeing and hearing.
Michael, this is a very large community here made up of various neighborhoods here, but I want to show you because you can definitely see that tornadic activity that came right through here. Walking through here, I have my flashlight. This is all we're seeing on the sidewalk, on the road, just pieces of debris. If we look over to my right, I actually want to show you some of the homes. Let's see if I can flash it with my flashlight. You can see the roofs are ripped open, the windows just completely through. This is something, if we could walk very slowly so we don't lose connection, you can kind of see what we're looking at. These are different communities here in the Avenir neighborhood in Palm Beach Gardens. I mean, this windscreen on the ground. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. Kayla, right over here. This is all the homes here is what we've been looking at, just completely torn apart. We're not seeing any neighbors inside their homes. That is the good news right now. But their homes completely destroyed. I actually want to walk a little bit this way, down the road here. We're seeing some car parts here, this tree down, ripped from its root here. But if we walk this way, you can actually see the car, and I'm gonna see how close we can actually get before losing connection. This car flipped on its side. You can tell it probably flipped a couple times before hitting this tree and landing. Palm Beach Gardens police a few moments ago, they said there was nobody inside this car. Please be careful right there. At the moment, we don't know exactly where this car came from, which neighborhood, whether it's across the street and the house is behind us, but you can see it's completely flipped on its side, torn here. There was nobody here in this car. Now, if we turn over, I want to direct your attention across the street. We have Palm Beach Gardens police, fire rescue, fire trucks here. You can see there's obviously no power, no lighting there across the street. So I'm going to try to flash this flashlight across.
And you can see these homes across the street, again, ripped through. There's really no roofs there. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit even. You can just see the damage
There's
here
a hole
in
in
this
the roof.
Avenir neighborhood. There is a hole in the roof. You know, just a few moments ago as well, there were crews out here actually shoveling on the street here, just clearing debris to allow cars to drive through here. And you can see it's pretty clear right now. But if we look at the median, those trees on the ground, we're really just seeing a ton of debris. In just a little bit, we're going to cross over to that neighborhood across the street, see if we can talk to some neighbors there. But what we're seeing here, you're seeing those holes in the roofs, holes in those windows, glass shattered, debris everywhere. This car here on its side. Palm Beach Gardens police here, they are responding. We did have FPL crews. I have a police officer walking my way. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, excuse me.
Brianna Nesbra.
Okay. Yes, news crew. Okay, we are being asked to.
Okay.
We're being asked to leave right now.
Well, we have major cleanup going on right now, and it's kind of dangerous. As you can see, there's debris, there's metal and all kinds of stuff all over the roadways and sidewalks. I don't know, what's exposed, what's not exposed, so it's just not a safe area to be in right now. There's a command post set up over up.
As Brianna Nesbra speaks with law enforcement there, I want to point out Avenir, this is a brand new, relatively new community. I mean, within the last 2 years, Avenir has gone up. Those were brand new homes you were looking at. It's so built according to code. And of course, tornadoes are a different beast than hurricanes where we plan for Cat 1 through 5, right? But this is a brand new community off of, if we can get that split screen from the control room and show that Sandhill Crane tornado video. Again, Sandhill Crane is right next door to, it's a golf course and it's a development in and of itself, is butted up right next to Avenir. So that funnel cloud that we saw touch down at Sandhill Crane, we're working from the control room to bring that back up. Avenir, that is what rolled through this brand new, beautiful community right on North Lake Boulevard. Has multi-level homes, different floor plans. You saw Brianna pan from one side of the road to, it was a single family home, just really battered, and then panning across the roadway to that two-story, brand new development there, and a hole ripped right through the roof.
As you look at that awful image, and if you had just dropped in from somewhere, you'd say, oh, I'm looking at something, a tornado out of the Midwest. I think even before the arrival of the full impact of the straight line winds from Milton, this day will go down as one of, if not the single most destructive days weather-wise for our 5-county region, perhaps at least in known memory. And I include in that, Shannon, and I'll ask you, I came up from Miami back in Miami days to cover Gene and Francis, but in terms of scope, this would certainly seem to rival that in some ways. I've just never seen anything like it, and all of us sound like broken records, but from you, me, Steve, our entire meteorology team, from viewers, from sheriffs, from first responders, just have never seen the scope and depth of this kind of activity. The number of storms, the number of tornadoes that descended on our 5-county community today, really almost beyond belief. And from one end of our 5 counties virtually to another, as we look at the Wellington tornado.
Right.
I got a call a few hours ago, for those of you joining us, a friend of mine who said, we've got a tornado coming right at us. Their home was shaking. So I'm getting the text as it's happening. By Providence's sake, they are spared, where at least a dozen, perhaps many more, have some significant damage. And that's just in Wellington, in the Binks area, the preserve area. And one home spared, another battered, trees down, roofs ripped off, you name it. And
cars lifted up and flipped around and carried, who knows. Thank God no one was in that vehicle at the time in Brianna Nesbra's video, because that was flipped and wrapped around a tree and
these damage
smashed.
assessments just now really beginning, and first responders who have a plan and will work tirelessly, because that's what they do, and there are community heroes, and so will power crews. But again, before you expect, okay, we're going to put our plan in place, and then we have some timing on when the storm will arrive, and you base all of that. It's what you do. That's good planning. And suddenly the planning's tossed out the window to some extent, because you're having to back up, as I said a few minutes ago, before the opening bell, with catastrophic damage across 5 counties before the bulk of Milton's hurricane-force straight-line winds even arrive, the northern tier of our viewing area will feel those most consequentially. So debris flying, we're trying to get injury reports. We've heard injury reports in different communities, and the amount of damage, the amount of cleanup that will have to be done, reiterating the message that the best thing you can do if you're watching, if you have power, if you've been blessed to escape damage thus far this day, the best thing you can do is give thanks, stay at home, stay at home, stay at home for your safety and for first responders to do their jobs and reach out to so many people who suddenly find themselves in need across our 5-county communities so they can get there to and fro to do their jobs.
We can't get there fast enough, and neither can they. Ethan Stein, he's in Okeechobee County. He's been covering just the disaster that has hit in that area. Ethan, where are you now?
We're in the same neighborhood. It's actually about a street south of where we were before, and you can really see the house that's right over here. Michael was talking about ripped roofs, and this is a perfect example of it. You could see it just with my flashlight here. It's just ripped clean off. It's the amount of damage here is shocking. And we were talking about the debris earlier, and that the stronger winds would be coming sooner rather than later. And you can see all this debris. I'm shining with my flashlight so you guys can see the amount of nails that are exposed from the frame of the house that was ripped off. We're gonna try to stay away from that cord up there because we don't know if it's live or not, but you can see parts of the roof just in the trees or whatnot, and you can see the amount of damage in this person's backyard. Oh, heard a loud bang, but we're okay, so we're gonna keep going. As you can hear those winds picking up, and you can see that part of the roof, it's kind of wanting to peel right off that tree there. And you could see the amount of damage in this person's backyard, including the shed over there as well. One thing that I also want to point out, obviously the damage here with the ripped roof, but also important, other than the debris that you're seeing here, is the amount of tree damage that we're seeing. I mean, there are tree branches all over this neighborhood. I mean, and there are signs as well that are also out of the ground as well. Even when we were driving over here, we almost missed the street because the street sign was ripped right out of the ground and placed in one of these, aggregating ditches normally where we have drainage for rain and whatnot. And you could see those are filled as well. So more parts of the storm are coming, and the damage here is just going to create more fuel for potential dangerous situations with Milton on the way.
Growing increasingly uncomfortable with you making your way around that structure there, Ethan, with the wind picking up and power lines draping down. This is not a safe space. We don't believe that maybe you need to move away from. We just heard Brianna Nesbrough. She was in a community with similar damage, and law enforcement was asking her to back away only because they had not had a chance to assess it themselves. Those are dramatic pictures and heartbreaking to see that family home devastated like that.
And as you watch out for your safety, Ethan, such a good point, Shannon, what are you seeing in terms of emergency personnel pushing into areas, or is the damage so widespread that it's hard to see if they're really coalescing around one area? What are you seeing in terms of early emergency response?
Yeah. Very little.
Because there's so much.
Very little.
There's so much.
That house that we were out that we showed earlier, maybe. I have not, we've seen like one or a few cop cars or whatnot. I think, we were talking earlier, you saw me talk with that, earlier with that house that we saw on, I think it's Highway 704 with the damage in that person's house, just basically, in that mobile home that was flung around the fence. The people who were actually there we saw more volunteers from the community helping out than actually emergency responders. And I'm sure they're doing a lot. I don't mean to say that. We just may be missing them. There's a lot of them at the EOC working extremely hard. I have not seen a cop car we did see a cop car earlier on the street, but we do not know where he is now. There are people out and about. It's a weird area. We're showing you this house obviously because you can see the amount of damage. But you may go 2 houses down and that house could be completely fine. And you could drive another, 2 doors down and then see another, big mess of trees. And then all of a sudden you see another house that's perfectly fine down the street. That's how it can be sometimes with these, types of storms. But again, we're trying to make the point here as I turn the light back on, this frame of this house, I want to get down close. I mean, the frame over here, and all it takes, I mean, it does not look that heavy. I mean, I can almost pick it up. So I imagine, a strong wind, a straight line wind, can lift up this type of debris and carry it further and then affect somebody else. All of this at this point, are flying projectiles, and you're kind of very, you see me, I'm moving very cautiously. I'm looking around at my surroundings because I want to make sure that we're in a safe situation. I'm even standing in front of this just in case if it does blow up, I can, move out of the way or something like that. So, we are taking the right safety precautions to make sure not only me, but also the person behind the camera who's helping me out, Jimmy, is also safe as well. But, we were talking about this throughout, the past 2 days. Officials are very concerned with the wind. They understand what it can do to a lot of the homes in their community. It's done some of that, obviously. And now these are all projectiles for Milton to carry and do what it wants. And that's the concern that officials have been, telling me consistently over and over and over again, throughout the week. And it's different than the actual concern that we hear from residents, because they keep seeing this rain that we have coming on us right now, and they see their ditches, as you could see, pretty kind of full at this point. And they're concerned that this rain that's going to come from this storm is going to come up and flood houses like this. And that's been the difference that we've seen from like an official standpoint and a public standpoint. While public is very concerned about the flooding and the rain and water damage, officials are concerned about the wind. And that's been, interesting. And we've seen more areas of Okeechobee, I would say, boarded up today than we saw yesterday, dramatically. It felt like almost, I felt like enough people really weren't taking what we were saying seriously enough. And, I woke up today around noon and I just saw the frantic, last minute preparations by everybody. And I'm just looking over there because I can see that mailbox. Hey, we're gonna shut this down because I could see that thing flunging out, and it's behind my photographer. So we're gonna send it back to you and get out of here.
Thank you, Ethan. You all stay safe. We want to move up our coverage area to Port Salerno right now.
Yeah, Zitlali Salache, she's standing by with a live report. You've been moving around that county as well. What can you tell us, and where are you right now?
We're in Port Salerno, and specifically it's near the Rocky Point Cove. So there's pretty much complexes here of condominiums, homes, shops around the area, and this is right by the bay. So I'm actually going to step out of the frame here so you guys can see a bit of that damage that is seen here from the tornado. You can see lots of people checking out some of the damage around here. But the first thing I do want to point out was that fence. I was able to speak with a resident, and they basically told me that this is just one of 2 tornadoes that they experienced in this street. Once again, I want to reiterate, I'm on Southeast Horseshoe Point Road. And he mentioned that he was in the home with his family and just making sure that his family was safe when he heard that loud whistling noise. And yeah, basically you're looking at this street down here with that white wooden fence that was just blown blocks away is what he mentioned. You see lots of pieces of debris here, pieces of homes, fencing, downed power lines as well. This is actually the downed power line that you can see that's right across from me. And this is just one of the many all across Martin County that we've seen so far. Also, you hear that? That is just one of the many ambulance noises that we've also been seeing around here. There is law enforcement constantly just supervising the area. Also, fire rescue officials have been doing their best to keep residents safe, making sure that they are okay. And I just want to reiterate, this is just one of the many areas in Martin County that has been impacted by those tornadoes. But of course, if we find some more areas out here that do have some of that damage as well, we will keep you guys posted, and we'll follow along some of these areas in Martin County. Back to you guys.
Once again, that just dramatic footage of that down power line just behind you. Clearly, crews have not been able to respond there. We don't know whether that's a live wire or not, but you see the approaching headlights, and every law enforcement agency has said, please get off the roads, stay off the roads. You're going to run into things like this, and you even see people milling around behind you. Really the best thing to do. I know it's so tempting to get out there and see what kind of damage is done. If you can stay safely in your homes, that is where we need you. And Zitlali's live shot there really tells that picture very clearly. Those approaching headlights, obviously they can see something in the roadway there, but that's very scary.
Lala, you and your crew remain safe. We appreciate all the reporting you and all of our teams are doing out in our community and will be doing, but stay safe as we urge everybody in our community to do so, and thank you for your on-scene reporting for us thus far this evening. We want to get an update now as we look at the larger aspect of the approaching storm, Hurricane Milton. And it sounds so weird to say that because we've been dealing with absolute nightmare today. And Steve, I'd asked Shannon earlier, am I stretching it to say this will go down as one of the most destructive days weather-wise in the 5-county community, and even including Francis and Jean?
Yeah, think about this, Michael and Shannon. We typically, there's more damage right now than we would typically see in a hurricane, from this hurricane, what we were expecting from this hurricane. And the hurricane's still, moving in the Gulf of Mexico. So, yeah, it's really incredible. I mean, it's a tornado outbreak that's going to be studied for a long, long time because we've never seen anything like this. Kind of memories of the tornado outbreak in Orlando, I believe in the mid-90s, that did a lot of damage and a lot of fatalities from that. This is very, very similar to that. Just unexpected. We were expecting the tornado threat, but not this. Not a dozen tornadoes. Oh, one after another. Right. Just unbelievable.
Well, and I know, to be clear, having covered that, and you all, of course, lived through it, I came up and covered it, not trying to compare any disaster. And if it's your home and everybody else is fine, it's a disaster for you. So not trying to compare in that sense because Jean and Francis were horrible, horrible for people. But in terms of scope, this in many ways may, as the historians look at it and as weather experts like you look at it and conferences to come, say in its own way rivaled that for the misery it's caused and the damage it caused as we look at the source of all that misery behind you right now, Hurricane Milton.
Yep, and it seems that the landfall is going to be well before 2 a.m. In fact, I would say in the next maybe 2 to 3 hours, maybe a little bit longer. I want to show you the radar coming out of West Florida in a second. The video that you're seeing, live shots from the St. Pete's area of the rain and kind of the outer bands, or I should say some of the inner bands, because it is there's St. Pete's there. So they're very close to the inner core of this hurricane, which is right in this area here. It's not totally defined, but you can see that eye wall showing up, and it looks like the eye wall is starting to move in around Port Charlotte, Manatee County. The technical definition of landfall is when the center of the storm crosses land. So that'll probably be in an hour or two. Then it works inland and a little north of us and then tracks off the coastline. But in a sense, this is, hopefully we can get this in through our area or just to the north and off the coastline a little bit sooner too. And hopefully more like Wilma in the sense that moving faster and we can get done with all this severe weather threat. There's a look at our radar. You can see the storms from earlier that produced the tornadoes. They're off the coastline, so that's good to see. A little shower, that's about it. There's a look at our radar with a little bit better view and some rainfall north of Okeechobee County. There's a line of rain there that we'll keep an eye on. It doesn't look like much on the radar. I'll tell you that this is moving at about 40 to 50 miles an hour. So some very gusty winds are possible with this little line. The tornado threat is really dropped at this point, simply because we've lost a lot of the dynamics as the storm moves closer to us. So it's not very far offshore. It'll make landfall in the next few hours and then track up around, well, toward the Cape, let's say, and then work off the Cape, and then eventually, this is a 7 p.m., so this is, it's not an intermediate advisory. Once the storm gets close enough to the coastline, the Hurricane Center issues updates every hour. And if there's a need, even in between those hour points, if the winds have shifted a little less or a little more. So Category 3 right now, winds 120. The track, again, north of Okeechobee County and then off the coastline. So there's 2 a.m. and there's 2 p.m. So we are looking at a storm that's moving a little bit faster and hopefully out of here a little bit sooner too. The watches and warnings, hurricane warning, that is for St. Lucie, Indian River, and Okeechobee counties, and the tropical storm warning in blue, all of this area, which includes Martin County and includes Palm Beach County. So there's another look at just a massive storm about to make landfall. The eye is covered in what we call a high and dense overcast. The probability of seeing tropical storm force winds, well, you can see it's almost 100% across the Treasure Coast. It drops a little bit, but it's still above 50-50 heading into Palm Beach County, especially southern Palm Beach County. So there's obviously some big numbers. Those are winds. at 40 miles an hour or stronger. This is interesting, the hurricane wind probabilities. So these are sustained winds. Don't be fooled here. There are sustained winds and there are wind gusts. And with this storm, you may look at, well, there's no chance of seeing really strong winds here. That's not the case. We could, I won't say easily, but we could see hurricane force wind gusts on the Treasure Coast. And we're in a hurricane warning, so there is also the chance of seeing some sustained winds. But you can see on the probabilities, it's extremely low. On the west coast of Florida, it's extremely high, almost 80% at this point as the storm moves through. And we'll get into a northwest wind and actually turn cooler, but still very gusty winds into even tomorrow afternoon before it really gets off the coastline and away from our area. So this is, it's going to be a very, very windy night. Hopefully we're done with a lot of the rainfall, and it is about to make landfall in, I would say, the next couple of hours.
So as you said, Steve, that one aspect of that is, frankly, get in here and get out of here as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and hopefully this doesn't drag on and on, which it doesn't look like it will do. It. And now it's moving, 15 miles an hour? So it has picked up its forward speed a little bit. Earlier today, it was around 12. So it makes a difference as it crosses the state.
And Steve, for us, of course, we're talking the tornado damage. We're all in, frankly, shock right now.
Yeah.
What we've witnessed this day, what so many of you have dealt with, either you or loved ones in this community. As for the core of Milton, though, remind us again, we talk about Category 3. How far out again will the core of those worst winds be from the storm?
And is there a path that we can say, we know where the destruction is now? Our reporters are out there and law enforcement reporting to us where we got the really hard hit today with these tornado drop downs, and it seems like everywhere. But can we focus, is there any more of a path with, to Michael's point, these wind fields being so large? Has that shrunk any? Can you tell us for certainty, okay, here's who's going to be feeling the brunt of this tonight?
Yeah, well, right now, there's what we call an extreme reds and yellows here. So this area around Sarasota, that's what it's an extreme wind warning. It's a product put out by the Weather Service that is rarely used. The last time I remember it was in Ian, as Ian made landfall. Wow. It's winds well into 100 miles an hour, and it's for a big area of West Coast Florida. So it's right along the northern eye wall of this storm. That's a concern. Hopefully those winds don't continue to wrap around on the backside of this storm and then eventually have an impact into the northern Treasure Coast. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's definitely something that we'll be watching. Those are some big winds. And that happened in Ian, and there were around Sebring, and a little farther south into Okeechobee. Okeechobee actually had in Hurricane Ian a sustained hurricane force wind because of these winds wrapping around. So Okeechobee and Indian River County, you could get into at least a brief period where the winds get up around hurricane strength.
We have NOAA images, Steve. I believe we're seeing them right now, and it gives you a sense of the enormity of a storm system like this and the power of nature. And
look at all the lightning.
Right, from space you can see the energy in this storm.
Those are the storms that rolled through here earlier. That's all that line of tornadic activity that we saw.
Wow.
My goodness, as you look at that, this monster storm as we called it, but let's face it, yesterday as we all looked at the cone, no matter how many times you said it, Steve, we tried to take comfort in, we'll get a blow, but none of us woke up this morning beginning to imagine the kind of day we'd see. And our hearts go out to all of you who've been impacted, or if it was one of your loved ones impacted, we are certainly getting crews to all those scenes. First responders are moving in. And as we have said so many times in the past, our community will come together to get back on its feet and to help those of you who need it the most. But right now, we know there's nothing we can say except that we're here with you on a very, very tough day that none of us could have imagined as the sun broke this morning.
And that's a good point. I was going to mention that we look at a slew of weather models in the days before the hurricane approaches. There were no computer models that indicated the activity that we went through this morning and this afternoon and early evening. There was just nothing out there that hinted at just how strong the thunderstorms and the tornadoes would be that moved across our area. Like looking back to the satellite loop and all the lightning on the outer feeder band, I don't remember seeing a hurricane loop like that in my life. Sometimes you'll see it near the core, see it near the center of the storm, like we saw with Helene. That just means it's rapidly intensifying. In this case, to see that outer feeder band with with hundreds and hundreds, thousands, in fact, lightning strikes. It's just unheard of.
Back to Michael's question to both of us, frankly, you know, you've been here 29 years in this market, Steve, covering hurricanes. I've been here about that amount of time as well. He keeps asking us, have we seen anything like this? To, you know, in terms of the dollar amount and the category 3, 4 from Francis Jean, he was asking us to compare and contrast. Certainly not the breadth of activity and the stretch of time from 9:45 in the morning all the way until 8 o'clock now here at night that we've been on the air covering this. You know, I know you've said it a couple times. No, to answer your question, nothing like this in the past. We'll add up the damage, we'll add up the numbers and see whether those, you know, Francis Jean era, you know, matches up economically or damage toll or lives lost, certainly down the road. But from my memory, and it sounds like you too, Steve, answering your question. Mike.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Think about it, we haven't even dealt with the storm yet. It's still on our doorstep. It's still about to move through. But to have this kind of damage on the outer bands of a hurricane here is really unheard of. You know, in Hurricane Ian, we had some tornadoes down around Delray Beach that moved through, and also some that popped up, or more than likely popped up around Okeechobee and those areas. But this was, for hours and hours and hours, widespread, not only tornado warnings, but widespread tornadoes that left just a swath of destruction across our entire viewing area.
And with news from Sheriff Keith Pearson, St. Lucie County. Multiple fatalities. Sheriff Keith Pearson, St. Lucie County, saying being reported at Spanish Lakes Country Club, St. Lucie County. Multiple fatalities, this according to the St. Lucie County Sheriff, Keith Pearson.
Spanish Lakes, I believe, is it along Kings Highway? I believe it's just north of Lakewood Park. Where as you're driving back and forth from Vero toward Palm Beach County, that you take that road down through Kings Highway. I believe that's where Spanish Lakes is, and I believe that's a fairly new community. I don't want to say for sure, but.
And that's what's so dramatic as we, you know, assess the damage. Brianna Nespral was out at Avenir a short time ago. Those homes are brand new, but you can't build a Cat 5, structure.
Well, you can.
You can build the Cat 5 structure, but can it withstand? Clearly not tornado.
Well, can you pay for it? Because that's when the expense. That's when you're balancing the expense of buying a house and the wind damage that it can withstand. And you know, we reach a point where, you know, it's all like kind of the diminishing returns. The more you spend, it's going to cost you more, but you have a better built house. It's just all probabilities. You know, you get to a point where you're like, okay, am I going to get this strength of wind? And just no one expects to see widespread tornadoes during the day having such a widespread impact.
And Steve, even as you're talking, excuse me, I'm just getting information coming in. We've got crews heading to that scene. Yet another sobering, profoundly sad note to this day about multiple fatalities being reported at Spanish Lakes Country Club, and we're trying to get a better sense of how many that may be. But on this nightmarish day and night, the whole community pauses and grieves as we're seeing the. It's one thing for property, we can pick the pieces back up, but now people are left with broken hearts and they can't pick those back up. And we've got crews rushing to that scene, Spanish Lakes Country Club, St. Lucie County, with the report from Sheriff Keith Pearson of multiple fatalities there.
And when you think about it, the storm hasn't even arrived yet. We're still dealing with the outer bands working through, and now you know, the people in these communities have to deal with this and the storm that's still approaching.
We're looking at images. Our producers mentioned this is out of Lakewood Park. Images a bit small on our screen. We're having trouble identifying them as they were shot in a different format. We're working to enlarge those just a bit for our audience here. But from our vantage point, it looks like down trees at this point. Once again, this is the Lakewood Park community. These images just coming into us clearly shot a bit earlier in the day, but nonetheless, after the tornadic activity moved through that area.
And that is the community that Megan was trying to get to from her last report. And we were getting a message that we have a severe weather chat with the Weather Service and Emergency Management and also ham radio operators, and they were indicating widespread damage in and around Lakewood Park, which, if you don't know, is just kind of between Vero and Fort Pierce. Just a great older community. I spent some time there. I used to do backyard weather events and know some people who live there too. It's just a really nice area of South Florida.
I believe Megan was saying she was having difficulty getting into the area. Right, she was out on Kings Highway at the time and efforting to get into this community. So clearly someone has gotten in and able to shoot. Weather spotter, I understand a weather spotter has sent us these images that we're looking at with all of you for the very first time at home.
This is being described as a home, a 55 plus community, at least according to one thing I pulled up from SpanishLakes.com, 1,400 acres of land, and talking about the living there at Spanish Lakes. Live your best life on Florida's Treasure Coast. And now lives have been lost there this day as we are rushing crews and as all resources are being rushed there. Steve, are you able, as we pull up an address, does it allow you on any of your graphics to, if we zero in on the exact address, to kind of pull up that?
The Spanish Lakes Country Club
you know, let me just, I'll walk over to the weather computer and try to get into those
As Steve's
neighborhoods.
doing that, I believe we had some video coming into us of one of the tornadoes that was shot out of the Westlake, Florida. Of course, Westlake, located in Palm Beach County, western communities. We're talking, it kind of butts up against, there we go. Here's some video shot from neighbors in the Westlake community. Westlake, 39th municipality in the county, came into Palm Beach County developed in 2016. Butts right up against Lion Country Safari, Royal Palm Beach. So that activity, we hadn't seen too much of the tornado that ripped through Royal Palm Beach, and we haven't been able to get into that community. We saw our TA Walker in the Loxahatchee area a short time ago. This system, you're looking at it right here as it makes its way. Additionally, Wellington, very close by the Aero Club community, and that damage we saw a short time ago. But that is the actual cell tornado that touched down, being shot from this relatively newer community, Westlake community in western Palm Beach County.
And we have Megan McRoberts joining us by phone. Megan?
Michael, Shannon, just popping in really quick. We are on our way up to the Spanish Lakes Country Club community in St. Lucie County. Our understanding, one of the really badly hit communities earlier this afternoon from those tornadoes. At this point, I just got off the phone with Sheriff Keith Pearson. We're racing up there to grab him on camera, but he did confirm to me that there are fatalities, in his words, in that community. He wouldn't give me an exact number. I asked if it was one or more, and he only told me multiple. So grave situation up there. I'm trying to learn more about the community as we're on our way. I know John Barron is in the community as we speak too, but with really poor cell service. But I spoke with someone who knows the community, and they tell me these homes are just not as well built. So hurricanes, tornadoes, maybe not built to really withstand that kind of a wind impact. So we're going to be there probably in about 10, 15 minutes. We'll check back in with you. But again, we're driving up there to, again, we can confirm for you tonight multiple fatalities, and we're driving to look at some of those conditions.
Megan, what can you tell us? I know you're at Kings Highway and you're making your way to Spanish Lakes. What are you seeing along the way that stands out to you? You covered this community, this region of our community for so many years. What's standing out to you as you're looking through the windshield, trying to make your way to this really tragic and hard-hit area?
Really the spotty nature of the damage, I think, stands out to me. We go through some areas that just seem completely devastated. You don't have to drive that far for everything to be okay. You go from several intersections of no traffic lights, down power lines, trees down, buildings, just ripped apart, and then you go, a quarter of a mile down the road, and we see lights again, and we have traffic lights working, and gas station lights are on, and truck stop lights, which is, of course, indicative of tornado activity, unlike hurricane activity where it's more widespread. It's just interesting how spotty the damage is, and just how extreme it is in such concentrated areas. But yeah, it's getting darker now, so it's a little bit more of a challenge to keep taking in some of the damage. So we're looking harder. We're looking with a little bit more intention now that it's gotten dark. Sure. But the damage we are seeing is just devastating.
Megan McRoberts making her way to Spanish Lakes Country Club, where she will be reporting for us. And again, Sheriff Keith Pearson a short while ago confirming multiple fatalities. We do not know the precise number, but confirming these the words from Sheriff Keith Pearson, multiple fatalities, Spanish Lakes Country Club in St. Lucie County. We have crews headed to that scene as we now, sadly, on this day of really a day of, frankly, terror. I heard it, I could see it in the text, I could hear it in voices of people I've talked to.
And our own employees.
And our own employees, Hani Rodriguez and a friend of mine, and so many people are sending us videos. And now, at this point, before the main bulk of the straight line winds from Milton arrive, the sad news to report of multiple fatalities in our community as rescue workers were rushing to help. Now they can only rush to claim those whose lives were lost at Spanish Lakes Country Club.
And Megan McRoberts on her way to that scene. We do have our team of reporters out and about. Ethan Stein is Okeechobee, but you see as we're moving out and about, Brianna Nesbro was in Avenir along North Lake Boulevard in Palm Beach County.
Jamie Ostrov, Vero Beach.
That's right, and they're making their way out. Lolly was out on a road in Martin County with a down power line. These are dangerous conditions. We're trying to get to them safely, and as you heard in Brianna Nesbro's report, law enforcement did come out and say, hey, we haven't gotten out here yet. We don't know what's here. We'd like you to back off, and we are respecting that. As such, our John Barron made his way to the Lakewood Park area. What we're doing now is we're asking our crews, film what you can safely, send it back to us. So he taped this a short time ago.
Here in Lakewood Park, they were hit by a tornado. You could see some of the devastation as that car is flipped just down that road. Several down power lines and trees as well. Many community members coming out and trying to make sure that everybody is okay. And of course, we've been talking with a lot of them, especially right here. As you can see, this gas station completely destroyed. And we're here with Leo, his father. Actually, he owns this, correct? So just kind of talk to me, and we're going to make our way up there. Kind of tell me a little bit about what happened. I mean, I know you guys locked up at 4:30, right?
Yeah, so I was just sitting home playing games with my friends, and my dad barges in my room and said, hey, get up, the store got hit by a tornado. Everything around here, you can see all the trees are messed down. Watch your head, there's about a lot of falling stuff around here, but this is the whole store. You can see the tornado went down to the left here and all the way down, took out the whole top of the gas station lines, and then inside here you can see all the, I didn't mean to hit your camera, my bad. And then you can see all the fiberglass, all the stuff. Like even just walking through, a lot of stuff will fall down and all that. These are all like refrigerators, topple down all the way on the ground, everything around here. And right now we have some people in there trying to take out some stuff, like all the important stuff. But around here is like where it really gets super bad.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we were seeing, obviously, this had an overhang, and now it's right over here and resting right now in a pile of trees. So this is obviously an area that we're very worried about right now.
Yeah.
So as you can see, all this debris from, first off, the overhang, you can see right now, you can actually see that propane tank he was talking about right here. That was the container for the propane tank right there. And that's obviously where we're seeing a lot of this debris. So we're going to continue to give you guys more as we continue to make our way around, but we're seeing a lot of devastation right now with these tornadoes.
All right, John, stay safe out there. The good news is all that severe weather that rolled through, plowed through our area is now offshore. So this is it right here. This was the strong rain band that moved on through, and now it is gone. You don't have to worry about anything like that anymore. Our tornado threat is diminishing here, especially for Palm Beach County, now out of the tornado watch altogether, and the flood watch too, because we don't expect a ton of rain. This Milton is in the process of making landfall a little bit early too, because we're just about 8 o'clock now, and you can see it's maybe just give it another hour, and I think the official landfall is going to be somewhere around Venice Beach or so. All the rain on the northern half of it. Remember, we talked about this yesterday, where this thing was just going to pull a whole bunch of dry air in, and it's going to be a half a hurricane with everything on the top half and nothing on the bottom half. And as this continues to move across the state, that's what we're going to see here. And you can see the center probably right around here, so it's really, really close. And officially, to make landfall, the center has to cross, but the eye wall has already come ashore here, and you see Tampa St. Pete just getting beat with rain bands, just constant there too, and the backside of this thing, like Wilma, is going to be really, really strong. For us here, we have quieted down, thank goodness. Here's all the severe storms offshore those are not coming our way. So if you see lightning in the distance, it's dark now and it's easy to see lightning. You see it off in the distance. That's moving away. That's east. If you're looking east, those are not coming our way. Now, we still have the off chance, and we'll get a quick little shower to blow in from the south. We had a little bit in Okeechobee and Belle Glade, and then a little bit here coming out of Fort Lauderdale, give Boca and maybe Boynton a quick little downpour. We're going to start to get into the more squally, gusty showers that may move on through as we're going to start to feel the effects of Milton a little bit more as it gets closer to us. We'll see some of those squalls bring down some of that really gusty wind, not tornadoes, but I think those winds could cause some damage, especially as we get into the morning hours and for the Treasure Coast too, because you're under a hurricane warning. Hurricane force winds are no joke, and that could also cause additional damage, and especially if everything's weakened out there.
We have a little breaking news out of
Okay.
Martin
James,
County.
I apologize, but this is important for all of our Martin County residents. I just got a phone call. Christine Weiss, the PIO for Martin County, starting at 9 p.m. tonight, 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., a curfew for all of Martin County. That includes the municipalities. Again, Martin County, by order of the sheriff, William Snyder, a 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew for all of Martin County. Cities, unincorporated as well. I literally got off the phone with Christine just moments ago. Significant damage, of course, they're dealing with. Also homes that people have had to leave and evacuate. As they put it, they do not want outsiders coming into the county and causing trouble and taking advantage of the situation. Too many downed power lines, significant safety hazards for people to be out and about. The sheriff's office in Martin County saying if you are out on the road and if you're stopped, you need to have and better have a very legitimate reason as to why you had to be out on the road. So again, repeating, just coming in moments ago, a curfew, Christine Weiss tells me, from the Martin County Sheriff's Office. She's the longtime spokesperson for Sheriff William Snyder. A 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew beginning tonight, Martin County. We'll have more on that, but that's just coming in moments ago.
And that's good in multiple ways too. Of course, you want people's stuff to be secure. You want everybody to be safe. And well, if you're staying in and you're staying away and you're staying off the streets, you're going to stay away from Milton when it moves across the state too. So that's good that they're locking everything down there. And I think everybody should pretty much stay hunkered down if you can through the nighttime hours, because our regular winds are going to start to pick up here from the storm as it nears and gets closer. We may not have as much rain. We won't have as much rain at all. We may get a couple quick little squalls, dumping a little bit of rain at times, but for the most part, that dry air has taken over, and we're going to see those winds out of the south pick up, southwest pick up, and then finally west and northwest. And then as we get into late Thursday, we get more of a northerly flow, and that'll actually help pull down some nice air too. You see a little bit of rain along the coast as we get that push with the front farther down to the south. Now, here's the tropical storm force wind field is huge out here too, with generally tropical storm force winds stretching 250 or so miles. That will finally exit by late tomorrow. Here's our current winds right now too. So it's getting breezy right now. South wind at about 20 to 25. The southwest, the gusts already are almost tropical storm force gusts already. So as we get later, these numbers are going to start to tick up. Maybe by 10 miles per hour, maybe even by 20 miles per hour for some by tomorrow morning. Watch Vipercast as we get through the nighttime hours. This wind really starts cranking. So this is 4 a.m. This is the late overnight hours. A southwest wind gusting up to 60, 69 in Sebastian, and that's why there's hurricane warnings for Indian River County and St. Lucie County, because although we won't have the tornado situation, just these straight line winds are going to be very powerful and damaging too, especially if you were hit by some of the earlier tornadoes. Some of the things will be weakened out there, even if some trees didn't fall over. Well, now this will be the second punch that may cause additional damage here through the late night, early morning hours. The timing is a little bit quicker now. This is making landfall probably around 9 o'clock or so instead of midnight. So that means it's going to get out of here a little bit earlier. This is 9 a.m. This right around, I would say 5 to 9-ish a.m. will be the peak for the Treasure Coast from the hurricane winds moving generally out of the west. But we see it extends all the way down, even West Palm 48. Boca a little bit less here as you're farther away from the storm. And then we all improve here going into Thursday night. So remember, the wind's going to pick up tonight still, but no tornadoes. Then it'll finally come down by this time tomorrow night. This will be history.
Wind that we're looking at there, and you're talking to us about that we'll be expecting later on this evening. FPL already reporting outages in Palm Beach County, about 21,000. Martin County, 19,000 are out. St. Lucie County, 22,000 already without power. Indian River County, 25,000. Okeechobee, about 2,700. Those numbers obviously could be going up as we move into the night and the early morning hours, but they're doing their best. They were going to try to scramble teams, FPL was, and get their linemen out there to repair those lines. But they've had very little time today to get out on the roads at all.
Too many storms out there.
Even though the rain is cleared up, they're still going to have to deal with these winds too. So I think there's going to be additional power outages by tomorrow morning, just because all the rain too softened everything more. The tornadoes kind of weakened a bunch of stuff. So we're going to look at just more power outages in the morning.
James Whelan, we won't go far from you and your team, Steve Weigel and Chris Sowers. We appreciate it so very much. We want to jump over to Eric Gill, St. Lucie County PIO. We have him on the phone now, and Tanya Rogers is joining me here at the desk this evening as we move into the night, and just a really heartbreaking story that's developing in a part of your county. Thanks, Eric, for jumping on with us. I know you're incredibly busy. What can you tell us about the status, what you found at Spanish Lakes Country Club, that tragedy that has taken place there?
Yeah, we have dozens of homes in St. Lucie County that have been damaged, some catastrophic damage here. We are working with the St. Lucie County Fire District, who's called in the National Guard, as well as units from the Sheriff's Office and even some of the first responders from the surrounding counties to help with search and rescue. Our goal is to get into some of these neighborhoods where we've known we have multiple tornadoes have touched down, to recover survivors, do a damage assessment, and get those residents to a temporary shelter location. We have 3 shelters that were already opened, but we're looking at already converting another school to a 4th shelter to take care of those that may have been displaced by the tornadoes that ripped through our area this afternoon.
So you're having to do that quick work as well as assess the damage and even fatalities. We understand there have been fatalities reported. Your sheriff, Keith Pearson, said there were confirmed fatalities out of Spanish Lakes Country Club.
Yeah, we can't confirm that here at the EOC, but we expect that there will be multiple fatalities from these tornadoes. And our goal is to get in there. As we know, the tropical force storm winds are going to start picking up here in our area around 11 o'clock. So we want to do as much assessment and cleanup and rescue as we can before those winds pick up and get those residents to safety.
Now, Eric, I wanted to know, you called it a search and rescue, so you already know that you have to search for people. Have you been getting any calls from family members saying they're looking for their family that lives in that neighborhood?
Yeah, our public information outline are getting those calls. If they have family out of state, if someone's not answering the phone, they're concerned. We ask them to, please call the public information line, 772-460-HELP, and not burden 911 with those kind of calls unless it is an emergency. Obviously, if you have a medical emergency, call 911. But right now, we're doing everything we can to, search and rescue in those neighborhoods where we know we have had multiple tornadoes touch down.
I heard you say you've called in the National Guard.
Yeah, anytime we go to a full level 1 activation at our EOC, there is National Guard stationed here. And we've had state representatives here that have been providing support as we need.
And that is because the damage is so widespread with multiple tornadoes. Have you been able to assess how many touchdowns you had in St. Lucie County so far?
No, at this point, we're still, doing damage assessments. We know there are multiple neighborhoods. Indian River Estates is one area, as well as, like you said, Spanish up in the Lakewood Park area.
Right.
There's a new warehouse facility right off US 1 and Kings Highway, Orange Avenue and Kings Highway, that is damaged. We don't think there were a lot of people in that building, but still the structural damage is significant here.
And Eric, if you could share that number one more time in case a family member hasn't been able to get in touch with someone.
Yes, our public information lines are 772-460-HELP. They can also, contact us through our website. We'll do our best which is stlucieco.gov. and we'll do our best to try and get that information to the right folks.
We just got some information from Martin County. There'll be a curfew going into effect this evening. And I'm curious if St. Lucie County is considering same. Have you heard any word on that?
We have not made that determination yet. Again, we have been focused on getting crews into these neighborhoods and doing damage assessment and rescue and getting those residents that are displaced into temporary shelter before the tropical force winds pick up in our area. You know, the challenging thing with tornadoes is one side of a street can be devastated and the other side can be untouched. So there's a street by street search, and the sheriff's office has been working with us as well as the other emergency management officials to do what we can before for the few hours we have left before the winds pick up.
Best guess, how many people do you think you're going to have to get out of a damaged facility or home and into your shelters?
Yeah, I don't have that number at this time. From the drone footage I've seen, it's dozens of homes that are, potentially destroyed.
Any idea how many live in the community?
No, I don't have that off the top of my head, unfortunately.
All right. Well, Eric, thank you so much for sharing the information. We'll make sure to pass on that number in case someone is.
Thank you. And if we could remind residents that still stay inside if they can, keep the roads clear for the first responders that are out there trying to execute the search and rescue missions.
We sure will. All right. Thank you, Eric, so much for joining.
Thank you.
And again, that number to call, 772-460-HELP.
Just a very good reminder. You see what law enforcement is facing, first responders are facing tonight. You see the damage being filed. Our reporters are getting to as many spots and locations as they can safely and trying to feed back the video you're looking at. Clearly this damage was captured prior to nightfall. Now we're heading into nightfall. It'll be more difficult for us to get that video back, but we're out trying to do our very best to keep our crews safely and ship it in. But you see and you can hear in the tone of law enforcement, when you start hearing Martin County now has a curfew. When you heard what Martin County was dealing with earlier, they were having to use axes and chainsaws to access communities to try to get to people who had been injured in these communities. Just a real call from law enforcement and first responders, get off the road, stay at home right now. It is a dangerous, all 5 counties have been touched.
It is. And eventually when one starts a curfew, others may follow along as well.
Right. We'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if each county follows suit. We have our Ethan Stein. He's been covering some of the damage in Okeechobee County. Are you still in that same general vicinity, Ethan? Trying to connect with Ethan Stein. We may have lost his connection just a little bit. We're going to try to work on that. Ethan, can you hear us? You have an image up, but we are unable to tap your audio at the moment. Ethan had been covering a more rural area. And something of a farming community a short time ago, but just the damage and destruction.
And the mobile homes that the people live in that have been destroyed from this.
We want to get back over to James Whalen and the team, get a little bit of perspective, do a little bit of a reset on where we are with Milton, and we're waiting on our producers to give us some direction on where we're headed next. But if you'll jump in real quick and give us a quick reset, where is Milton right now? What can we expect, and what can, as we try to get out and assess the damage, and get prepared for these straight line winds tonight? What is the timing on that, James, if you don't mind, if you can bring us up to speed on what our communities can expect tonight in terms of the timing?
Yeah, well, the good news is all that terrible weather is offshore, and we don't really expect any more of that here. We just expect the winds from the hurricane to start picking up now, but not tornadic. It's just about making landfall. It is like really, really close. It's around Venice Beach is where the center of that looks like it's going to come on in. You can see it right here. This is about Venice, and that's about the center of this circle here. Of course, like we talked about yesterday, all this dry air is moving in behind it. So the eye wall now broken up on the south side, but the north side, just copious amounts of rain here from St. Pete into Tampa. These winds are coming in like this, so it's probably blowing the water out of Tampa Bay. However, all this rain probably causing some flooding concerns too. Then as this moves off here, our side looking good right now. We don't see any big thunderstorms like we had. Those are all offshore. And the threat is diminishing here for us too. The threat for tornadoes, the tornado watch gone for Palm Beach County, and it'll be dropped for most of the other areas too as we start to get closer to the storm. Every now and then we may pick up, you see it here, a little bit up the turnpike in South County, we may pick up a quick shower. That's going to bring down some really gusty winds. But for the most part, tornado threat is gone, thank goodness. That's done with. But now any loose objects sitting around, we're going to have to worry about the actual hurricane winds moving on through and blowing that around. And that's really going to pick up. We're going to see that peak either late overnight or tomorrow morning. We'll see that. Finally, this will push offshore, and then that will be that. We're going to flip the winds around, actually, and push it out of the northeast. Then we'll have some coastal problems with tides and waves and a little bit of surge there with that, too. So as we go through this, you see pretty much the entire area. Most of the peninsula covered in tropical storm force wind field here, but the stronger part, the strong tropical storm force here, stretching into Vero, Okeechobee, you'll see some of that, too, before that finally pushes offshore, and we'll see improving conditions. Our winds right now, they've picked up. South, southwest, 25 miles per hour, gusting to 45 now in West Palm. And that's not due to any storms. Well, it's due to the hurricane, but that's not localized storms like we just had. That's just the wind blowing out there. That's what I'm talking about. These are going to pick up even more, probably another 10 miles per hour than that by tomorrow morning, until we'll finally improve the conditions. Let's show you here on Vipercast. See, we see 50s to near 60. Strongest winds are going to be Indian River County here, because that's where the storm is going to be closest. Here it is right here. Going to move off around the Cape is where it's forecast to. The backside of this is going to be really strong out of the west. Finally, when it pulls away, we'll calm down these winds some. It's still going to be breezy, just not tropical storm breezy here. Going into Thursday evening, things will quiet down. Then Friday, a little bit breezy, yes, with northeast winds on Friday, but in general, we're looking at sub-tropical storm force here. And as we get into the weekend, the winds come down even more. So let's watch Vipercast. It does show a couple little bands coming on through, and these will have gusty winds, but again, tornado threat now dropping as we go through the night. So this is late night here, and you see a few, for the most part, drying out. Tomorrow morning, we may wake up, we're going to see some sunshine, but boy, that wind is going to be cranking tomorrow morning out of the southwest. We're going to see the backside of this storm here, wherever that goes. It's going to be really, really strong. It may just clip Indian River County there before moving on out, and then the winds turn around to the north, and we'll start to cool down. Maybe some coastal showers as we'll get that front to push down a little bit more and look better for us going into, say, Friday and into the weekend with some fall-like air at least.
All right, thank you, James. We want to get over to reporter Michael Hoffman, who's in the Treasure Coast area at Mariner Sand. Michael, what are you seeing? What can you tell us?
Well, hey, guys, we're out here. We just got past the cones, and we're out here with the first responders. I've been speaking to deputies here, and they tell me that it's devastating. They've never seen anything like this before. They tell me there's been at least 12 touchdowns of tornadoes in Martin County tonight, with 100-plus structures damaged, a lot of them catastrophic. FPL is on scene. When we were driving around, we saw a lot of down power lines here on US 1. We've seen boats flipped over. We've seen roofs ripped off homes. We've seen trees in people's living rooms. I mean, this is nothing to turn your nose up at. Again, power lines are down. FPL is on scene. It's reported that about 19,000 people in Martin County are without power. And just as Michael Williams told us, there is now a curfew in effect from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. by order of the sheriff, just to make sure everyone is staying safe. But talking to them, trying to find out if any fatalities. Thankfully, no reported fatalities at this point, but there have been a number of injuries, both minor and serious, as crews continue to work here to try to keep everyone safe.
Michael, you're near Mariner's Sand. Is that correct? You're near that development?
Yes, I am.
So we spoke a short time ago with the PIO from Martin County, Christine Weiss, and she was sharing that was a community that was hard hit. Clearly, that's why you've probably made your way there. We understand, if my memory serves, there were some people who were calling for assistance, had been injured, and the community was blocked. What's the scene now? Any indication that law enforcement, first responders have been able to get access to that community?
Yeah, great question. Law enforcement and first responders, it seems as though they are able to get to these communities. Where we're at right now, the whole, all like very large portion of US 1 has been cut off. The only vehicles that are coming through here, aside from us, are first responders, police, fire, EMS. They are getting through to these communities and assisting people. Right now I'm looking at deputies guiding people out of the damaged areas, trying to get them back on course to get to a safe location. But, in talking with them, you can really tell that while there are no reported fatalities, with the amount of damage that we're seeing, that could seriously change. It is quite devastating out here.
And the video we're looking at right now, and you're not able to see our screen, are in the control room, from the control room. Can you share with us the images that we're seeing now? Is this the community that Michael is speaking of, or is this Martin County video in general shot earlier today? Control room, can you help us out with that as we piece this together? We're being told this is the Rocky Point community. Michael, in your interface with law enforcement, any indication, because the damage is quite remarkable?
Yeah, there are a lot of communities that they've been speaking about all up and down US 1, and I can't stress enough the devastation that we're seeing out here. And I've been out on scenes before, and when you speak with these law enforcement officials and these first responders, there is it's surprising the calm and the amount of training that they have. It's on full display. They're putting on a very brave face, and they're really going out of their way to help people. And not just first responders, we've seen other members of the community surrounding these communities trying to get in to help people. It really is the silver lining in this cloud here, when you have such a community that goes out of its way to really help everybody.
All right, Michael Hoffman on the Treasure Coast. Thank you for that report.
And very clearly, just to recap, Sheriff William Snyder ordering, curfew taking effect 9 o'clock tonight because of the damage that Michael is talking about. Power outages, he says, 19,000 people in Martin County out of power right now. Perhaps more to come as we move through the evening tonight.
Yeah, now we take it over to Palm Beach Gardens with Brianna Nesbrawl. Brianna, can you tell us where you are and what you're seeing?
Yeah, we're actually right now outside the Sands Hill Crane Golf Club. This is actually the command post right now for Palm Beach Gardens Police. We're about 8 minutes away from the Avenir subdivision. We were just there a few moments ago looking at that tornadic damage from that tornado that ripped through here a few hours ago. At this point, really, I'm sure if you remember, you saw there was a car flipped on its side. We saw homes with the roofs, holes through them, glass shattered, debris all over the roadway. Right now, we're speaking with the police chief just a few moments ago, Dominic Pape. He was telling us they have actually closed that subdivision only to residents right now. The power is out. There is still plenty of debris on the roadway. What they're doing right now is just assessing that damage, making sure they're clearing those roadways in case, we get some more outer bands, some more wind damage this way, some more heavy winds that could really, bring those flying debris all over that subdivision still, as we were seeing earlier. We also have some videos, hopefully we're bringing those up right now, of what we were seeing, that car overturned, just some of those homes, like as I was mentioning, holes through the windows, through the roofs, those trees just ripped apart. It was really quite a scene there. We were told at least 100 homes were damaged in that subdivision. The police chief also telling us 2 people were transported. He doesn't know the extent of their injuries right now. They're working to find out their conditions right now. But 100 homes we're talking about, and that whole subdivision. Let's see if actually we could pan just so you could see. It's pitch black over here to your right here. That is what we're seeing in that subdivision. And again, we're about 8 minutes away, but this is still what we're seeing for miles, just pitch black here. So it is a little frightening. We were over there and there was debris just walking around. It was quite a sight to see. You feel for these people experiencing this. We were told they were going door to door, speaking to residents that might have been home. He said a lot of homes were also vacant, so that is the good news in all of this. But still, people were outside their homes experiencing this firsthand. Quite a scene. But right now they're just assessing that damage for the most part. They tell us they're going to be there all night into tomorrow. But again, closing that subdivision only to residents.
And Brianna, stay with us if you will, because I want to ask you a quick question. But right now on a split screen, we understand you're at Sand Hill Crane, that country club and golf course there. And
yes,
we have you in a split screen because earlier today we were able to pick up a funnel cloud imagery of a funnel cloud video that moved over and through Sandhill Crane. And just for our audience so they understand exactly your location, Sandhill Crane is right next door to this video now that we're shooting that you and your photographer shot a short time ago. This is Avenir, a brand new community, just a few years old, multi-level homes, single-story homes, and we're panning from side to side, clearly seeing that damage that you came up on. You were in there for a short period of time, and law enforcement actually approached you and had a conversation, asking you to finish the conversation, if you will. What were they saying to you? We pulled away from your coverage at that point.
Yeah, definitely. They were basically telling us that it was very unsafe at that moment because of the level of debris we're seeing in the roadways, because their power was out. It was pretty, it was pretty much black walking and driving through there. They didn't feel it was safe for us to be in there. They really wanted to close that area just for residents. They did want those residents also to go inside. So they were just asking us if we could leave that subdivision and get to a safer area, get to this command post, again, just next door here. Right now, I mean, this is all Palm Beach Gardens police surrounding here, police units here. There's a fire rescue down there as well. So they just want us to get to safer ground, safer area, and make sure that we were doing okay.
This is North Lake West, so just butting up to Sandhill Crane. You had Ibis, Bay Hill Estates, Avenir, these communities.
I believe that's a community of homes.
Shannon, I also want to mention.
Yes, please go ahead, Brianna.
Driving here about an hour ago down North Lake, there were multiple lights out, those traffic lights out. So that was also, scary. When we got to the Avenir subdivision, to that entrance, we did see Palm Beach Gardens police there at that intersection, but there were multiple intersections, traffic lights out. So also danger to the community. If you're driving in this area, of course, be careful. Try to stay home if you can.
Another reason to be off the roads tonight. Brianna Nesbra, terrific work, and thanks for bringing us those images tonight. Stay safe, you and your team.
Now we're going to go to Joel Lopez, who's been in Ruskin since yesterday. We're going to go live to him. It's just not too far away from Tampa. Joel, how are things looking there? It looks like you're dealing with a lot right now.
Yeah, that's right, Tanya. We've been out here for a couple of days now, and this is obviously the strongest we felt the storm breezes. We just got a quick nap between shifts, and we woke up to the sound of metal clanking on the windows. The electricity in the hotel just went out not too long ago. It just came back in, but I want to show you what looks behind me. So these are the trees right now. It's blowing pretty hard right now. Nothing insane that we can't stand it through, but obviously it's pushing me here. We're facing south. For a little bit of perspective, so here we are about 45 minutes north of Venice Beach. I think I was listening earlier. That's about where the stormfall is expected to make landfall. But here at the hotel, we've seen everybody evacuating from different towns. There's so many mobile home communities here. We saw cars full of trunks and boxes and bags of people evacuating their mobile homes, coming here to the hotel, and we're getting just different gusts of wind. You can see some transformers are blowing out. The lights shine blue behind me. So we're here. The rain isn't too bad. It's really that wind that we're feeling right now, but we're going to be out here live, walking around, talking to people. There's a lot of people in the lobby. Obviously, nobody can sleep right now, but you can hear the wind howling in between the trees. Again, we've been hearing things, hitting things on the window. But yeah, for now, reporting live in Ruskin, Joel Lopez, WPTV News.
Joel, who is live out in Ruskin. Now, Joel, have you seen the weather starting to really deteriorate very quickly as Milton is approaching?
Yeah, absolutely. We've only been away for about an hour, but in that window, it's definitely been blowing really hard. As you can see, even me standing here in the last couple of minutes, there's quick pauses, but then there's strong gusts of wind. I'm only 145 pounds, so I'm staying put. But right now, it's not unbearable, but of course, that storm is slowly making landfall, so we're going to see how things go on throughout the night.
All right, thank you, Joel. Make sure to be safe out there. We know we'll be checking back with you in a few. We just want to remind everyone that a curfew has been placed for 9 p.m.
9 p.m. starting at 9 this evening, running through 6 o'clock tomorrow morning for Martin County. As we look on it, Joel and his team starting to experience the front feeder bands.
I thought it was very interesting that it said as of 5 o'clock that our area had received 116 tornado warnings. And it just seemed as if when Steve Beagle was on earlier, everything was lighting up. I think you said it looked like it was like on fire. It really was. It was just everywhere. And it's just, and they've been so good at keeping us abreast of where these tornado warnings have been for people to take shelter. We've had numerous people that we know personally who had to take shelter.
And taking shelter. And the unfortunate part of this pre-planning event, because EOCs do such a great job at pre-planning, but Steve mentioned it earlier, for 2 days, Indian River County was the only county that was really, in a hurricane warned early on, so that people were shuttering up properly, had time to do those preps, that the EOCs had time to get shelters up and running. And now we're seeing our very own. At one point, there was an indication perhaps we'd be taking in people from the West Coast, perhaps helping them shelter. Now we're sheltering our own because of the outbreak of this tornadic activity.
Yeah, some of those hard-hit areas of Wellington. The pictures still keep coming in, I think, as people kind of catch their breath and just say, what just happened? They're starting to share the pictures and the videos with us.
Because so many of our schools are the shelters for our various communities, a quick rundown for families who are planning and some housekeeping notes as we try to get to our next live shot here. Indian River County, schools closed there on Friday, so you'll be back to school, hopefully, presumably on Monday. We'll keep you posted. Martin County also closed on Friday, all the way through Friday, so tomorrow and Friday. And St. Lucie County, schools closed through Friday as well. There's a teacher workday on Monday, so students and families will be returning to schools in St. Lucie County at this point Tuesday. This is a fluid situation. We're waiting to hear from Palm Beach County, certainly in Okeechobee as well.
And as we have Jim Barnes, who's joining us on the phone, he's with the Village of Wellington. Jim, thank you so much for joining us this evening. You guys have had a lot to deal with today. Tell me where things are at. What are you guys assessing? What are you looking at?
Well, it's been a busy afternoon, and while we were already in storm preparation mode for what we were hoping was going to be a mild impact from Hurricane Milton, late afternoon actually, and we were open today for business for the full day. Late afternoon toward the end of the business day, we started hearing reports of tornadic activity throughout the village, and at multiple locations, including from some of our personnel that were out in the field, and it was confirmed by Palm Beach County Fire Rescue and the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, and it's been very hectic. And fortunately, to fast forward to the end before we get to the details, the good news is at this point we can safely say that there have been no fatalities as a result of the tornadic activity that we experienced in the village. There were some injuries, but at this point, Fire Rescue and PBSO, together with our emergency management personnel, were able to successfully provide initial services to get those folks the treatment they needed. And fortunately, that we had no fatalities, regardless of what folks may be hearing on social media as far as that goes.
That is quite remarkable as we look on at some video that was shot in one of the Wellington communities earlier today. And we also understand we have some video, I believe this was Aero Club, inside a home in Aero Club. If my memory serves correct, it was coming in raw to us, sir. But it is quite remarkable that there were no fatalities, because this damage was quite remarkable. Any indication about how many properties, homes were damaged, and are you having to move residents to shelters there in the Wellington community at this point this evening?
So at this point, we don't have a total number of impacted units or houses or any structures at all, given that the timing of when these tornadoes hit was around the time where, as we responded, and at this point, we had to pull our emergency management of public works and first responder personnel back. Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office and Palm Beach County Fire Rescue are still in the community and working the different scenes. However, our recovery teams that were making roads passable, clearing some debris out of the roadways, vegetative matter out of the roadways, et cetera, we've had to pull them back because of the now that we are in darkness, it's not safe for them to be out there. And just a good time to also mention that it's not safe for the residents. If you were fortunate enough to not have any issues to your home, or at least have a home that's habitable, we urge you to stay there. Please stay off the roads. Please stay safe and allow the emergency personnel to do their work and be able to provide assistance to the folks that need it. And we are continuing our assessment at first light with our building inspectors to assess the habitable structures, non-habitable structures, and where we need to address some safety concerns. But we will have to wait for phase light.
Any indication you'll call for a curfew in the village there?
At this point, we don't believe we will. Generally speaking, I don't believe we're going to have that issue with the residents. It's certainly human nature to be to be concerned for your neighbors, to be concerned for the community, and at some point, I think you also have this hurricane fatigue that everybody's been experiencing for the last couple of days now, with school being out of session, and some folks being off for work today, and hearing everything about Milton coming our way. So I think over time, I think everybody will settle down. Our residents will end up doing what we do best, which is supporting each other and supporting everybody in our community.
Jim, I'm curious, have you had an opportunity to go out into the communities that experienced some of the damage?
I did briefly, only to try and assist some of the assessment teams, and then decided that I was not being as effective as I needed to be, and decided they're going to be better off without me, and I'm just one less traffic issue on the roadway. But I did have an opportunity to see a couple of the neighborhoods, and it's just really surreal, the damage that the tornado can bring, and how selective it can be, because there's really no predictability to that path. And there's no predictability to what suffers in that path, and it is just where you see one house that has complete damage, and the home or the vegetation next to that home looks like it's untouched, and that's, I think, that the strangest thing and the hardest thing to comprehend.
It really is so indiscriminate as it chooses, and it just hopscotches from one property to another. The home perhaps right next to the one you're looking at here that was so deeply affected, the home standing just next to it may be unscathed completely. You hit the nail on the head with that description, Mr. Barnes. Very quickly before we let you go, do you know how many communities within the Wellington, the village there, were affected or touched by tornado damage in some way?
Certainly, we have some bit of an estimate, given just where we heard and then responded to where we heard some of the greatest damage was. Tomorrow, we'll certainly we'll have better answers in terms of, ultimately, we might have some spot damage in various communities, but the key communities that were impacted were Rustic Ranches, Meadowwood, the Air Club community, as you mentioned earlier, Binks Forest, and Lakefield.
It's quite a number. A lot of work to do. We appreciate your time. Mr. Jim Barnes, the village manager in Wellington, deeply impacted this afternoon by these tornadoes that swept through. Thank you so
for
much
joining
your
us.
time.
We would like to get to reporter Zitlali Solace, who is in Port Salerno. And can you tell us what you're seeing there?
So we were in another area in Port Salerno, and it was a deputy that came up to us and said, "You've got to get out here to Southeast Dell Street," and that's exactly what I'm going to show you now. The two vehicles were flipped over. It was that black truck that thankfully a neighbor was able to assist. And over here to our right, it was also that red vehicle that is flipped over from those tornado impacts. Now, I am going to go back and tell you guys about that black truck back there. I did speak with the owner of it. He said that he was in his home with his family. This happened at around 5:30, and all he could hear was that whistling noise, so they immediately ran into the home's bathroom, and they were all hiding in the bathtub. And then when he came out to see past that, he saw that damage to his car. So as you can see, hopefully we're panning down here to those windows and that glass from the car. As far as the left side of the vehicle, it's completely damaged as it was flipped over. And it seems that that tornado was making its way north this way. But of course, that's just a little bit of the damage, some debris here that you're seeing. We're going to point it over, if we can, a little bit to our left side here. As you can see, there's people who are assessing all the damage who live near here. Now, there are various homes, I will say. Just driving by this area was quite devastating, because there were at least 2 homes were completely destroyed. I will say completely destroyed by that tornado. There is some debris over here, some shed, some chairs, just some couple of items, shovels from people's homes who were really impacted by that tornado. Now, if we are able to pan over, it seems that these downed power lines are becoming the norm here in Port Salerno. We have been to 2 different areas around this town, and it just seems that people are losing their power, their homes are being impacted, and it's just quite incredible what we're seeing out here in this area in Martin County. I did get a chance to speak with Martin County Fire Rescue official, the public information officer. He wasn't able to give me an exact number of how many calls they've had related to this tornado, but he was able to tell me that as far as we know, there's very minor injuries of those calls that they've been responding to, and as of now there are no fatalities. So despite what we're seeing here, all the damage, I think that that is great news to hear. Obviously that people will have to rebuild after this, lots of people here in Port Salerno, but that's pretty much all the information that we have so far. He also did confirm that there's dozens, if not nearly 100 buildings, he said, and spaces around here in Port Salerno that have been affected by those tornadoes that have been felt here. But I'll toss it back to you guys.
Lali, as we still have you on our screen, said we had a short window of time before we started seeing some of the winds. We can hear it in your microphone. We can see, you know, a very blustery evening around you that's starting to pick up. So we'll be tapping in with our meteorology team here moments from now. Meanwhile, a curfew in effect starting at 9 o'clock this evening. That's 20 minutes from now in Martin County, 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. Sheriff William Snyder has initiated a mandatory curfew. So folks should be off the road starting in 20 minutes from now in Martin County.
Good evening, everyone. Meteorologist Chris Sowers. It looks like Milton has made landfall now on the west coast. We're going to bring in Joel Lopez. He's reporting live. And Joel, why don't you tell us what you see and where you're located?
All right, we have Chris Sowers. We have a little bit of problem with our audio there. We're going to get over to Joel Lopez in Ruskin. On the ground, we understand that the hurricane has now made landfall, and you are seeing the front end of that storm. Wow. Joel, what can you share?
Hey guys, yeah, we're taking a little bit of shelter. If you can see right behind me, the awning is starting to break off here in the hotel. So we're going to move a little bit in. We were standing outside a little bit because the winds were picking up. So this is kind of what we're going through. This hotel has lost power. So things like this is what we can expect. I know even driving around last night, getting back to the hotel, we already started seeing a lot of flooding, and that was around maybe 4 o'clock. So it's going to be interesting to see what things look like outside. But let me pan around a little bit to the parking lot for you. So if you go to a little bit right, James, my photojournalist, you can see the wind is blowing, the trees are getting moved around. I think a couple of trees in the hotel parking lot. Oh, there goes that awning. So that's what we're worried about. So that's why we're under shelter. I know my dad's going to appreciate that. He was asking what I'm going to do to stay safe. James, if you want to pan around, we're underneath the overhang of the hotel. So, of course, that's what we're worried about. That's where we're asking people to stay indoors during these storms. I know sometimes that the wind gusts die down a little bit, but we want to stay indoors. We don't know what the projectiles are going to be. And especially here in Ruskin, again, this is the second hurricane in just around 2 weeks to come through. 3 hurricanes in 2 months. So there's a lot of debris around town that's been laying out from people cleaning their homes, cleaning their businesses. One resident said it best for a little bit.
All right, we're going to bring in Chris Sowers. We got that microphone situation worked out. Chris, your first look at this storm, what at least the conditions Joel's experiencing. Jump right on in.
Well, I mean, it looks, I was going to ask Joel because, you know, he brought up a good point here. This is an area that just got hit from Helene. They didn't see a direct hit, but they saw a lot of storm surge damage there. And I was going to ask him, you know, the extent of the damage that he had seen as he was driving down in that area, how bad it was. And of course, now they're getting the big winds from this system here. So, you know, what are we talking about in the span of about, what, a week and a half?
Days, right.
2 weeks.
14 days here. Are we able to bring Joel back in just for a quick Q&A with Chris here? I believe we had a question or two, if we could. We may have wrapped that scene and tried to get him into a safer location, Chris.
Well, maybe we can get him back in a little bit here. Let's talk about where we stand right now. We, you know, Steve and James and myself, we were all talking about how this was kind of going to be a 2-part system. We saw the severe weather aspect of this earlier here, but the good news is the tornado threat now is ending. It looks like that right front quadrant is well past the West Palm Beach area. So as far as severe weather from this point on, we've really dropped that down to a minimum at this point. So flash flood threat is also beginning to end. We're waiting on the hurricane force winds. They're going to arrive overnight tonight. What's important to point out there is you've got damage all over the place. There's power outages, power lines everywhere. So when these big winds start picking up, they're going to start moving some of this debris all over the place. And that's part of the reason why everyone's suggesting just stay inside, do not go outdoors. wait until tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon to start assessing what's going on in your neighborhood, and then just stay home with the extensive damage out there. The tornado threat again beginning to end. National Weather Service starting to chip away at some of these counties here. It still technically has a couple of our counties within the watch area, but when you look at Doppler radar, there's really not too much going on. Let me step over here. This was the heavy weather that we had. This was the feeder band that produced all the tornadoes a couple of hours ago. Now it's about 120 miles offshore. You still got some cloud to ground lightning strikes there, but notice within our viewing area, all you see is just a couple of showers to the south. That's about it. So the radar is nice and quiet, but we do have some more precipitation out here, some more heavier rains near the Tampa area. And there's a look at the eye right there just now coming on shore. It was sort of a lopsided storm. You had a lot of the heavy rain to the north, and then you had some of the feeder bands down here stretching across southern Florida, and that's where we started to pick up those big thunderstorms, those what we call supercells, where the actual updraft is rotating. Those are the kind of cells that can travel hundreds of miles, and they just drop the tornado down. It lifts back up, drops back down again. And we saw numerous supercells earlier this evening, and unfortunately you're seeing the extent of the damage now in parts of the area. Let's quickly go over to the infrared the colored satellite. And again, you can see it's starting to push through. When you look at something like this, the brighter colors represent where we're seeing the deepest convection or the heaviest thunderstorm activity. Obviously, a lot of that is around the eye wall or around the center of circulation. That's usually where you pick up the strongest winds, which at last report, 8:30, were approximately 120 miles per hour, but we do have reports of gusts a little bit higher than that, maybe 140 to 150 miles per hour. It's now picking up speed. It's moving to the east-northeast at about 15 miles per hour. And you can see how expansive this wind field is. Tropical storm force winds extend hundreds of miles here from the center of the storm, which again is making landfall as a Category 3. It's what we call a major hurricane, and that's going to continue to push east, all right, over the next, let's say, 12 hours or so, and then eventually all of this will work its way off the coast and out to sea. Now, once the storm hits the Atlantic, once it reemerges over the open waters of the Atlantic, the winds are going to begin to shift out of the north. And the concern there is for the Treasure Coast as well as the Space Coast. We're going to start to pile that water on shore here. So we're not expecting a storm surge even remotely close to what they're seeing on the Gulf Coast of Florida, but there still could be at least some flooding on our side too because of the sudden change of direction in those winds. Here's a closer look at it. So we're currently seeing wind speeds or wind gusts anywhere from maybe 25 to 40 or 45 miles per hour. The difference between a gust and a sustained wind speed. A sustained wind speed is a wind speed that's measured for increments of at least a minute. A gust is a sudden rush or a sudden push of air. So these are the gusts that we're projecting over the next 12 hours or so. Over my shoulder here, actually let me step over this way. That right there, that is a look at the eye as that crosses right over central portions of the state of Florida. Notice the gusts getting well within tropical storm force, 50, 55, 60 miles per hour as the center of the storm passes on by. Now we're into tomorrow, right around 3:30 in the afternoon. And even though the sun's going to be out, you'll see a mixture of sun and clouds. You still got these big winds blowing that debris all over the place. And another quick reminder, we do have the flood watch up now. A lot of the flood warnings and the flood advisories have been dropped, but the watch is going to continue because of the saturated grounds. And that's going to create problems too when these big winds come in. It seems like it's been raining around here for the past week and a half. You've got saturated soil. So now when the hurricane and tropical storm force winds move in, you don't really have anything structurally sound, I guess you could say, to hold those trees in place. You're going to start seeing trees topple over. They topple over into power lines. Now you have power outages. We've certainly seen plenty of outages because of all the tornado damage. So this too could be something else that we could end up seeing over the next, let's say, 12 hours or so. And I do believe we have Joel back, if we can get him here. There he is. Joel, how you doing? Just wanted to ask you real quick about the extent of some of the damage that you saw when you got down to the west coast there, western side, Gulf side, I should say, of Florida.
Yeah, this time around, everybody's kind of waiting. I spoke to a few businesses and homeowners. They said During Hurricane Helene, they got about 4 feet of water into their homes. But when I was in Steinhatchee, one neighbor told me he got 14 feet of water in his house, completely destroyed. Another restaurant in Steinhatchee wiped out. It was just a slate on the floor. So it really depends on where you're located, how close you are to the coast. For a little bit of perspective, where we are here in Ruskin, Tampa Bay works with canals and little rivers that run throughout all the towns in Tampa Bay. So the storm surge really impacts a little bit more widespread people. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of mobile home communities that just get flooded out, and there's been a lot of damage on the floor to speak for itself. But it also depends where that hurricane's making landfall, where those winds are pushing the storm and the water. So it's really a wait and see.
When you got there, was it dark, or was it still light when you first arrived?
Yeah, so we were standing in around the seawall here in Ruskin, and it was about 4 feet below the seawall. But one restaurant owner told me last hurricane a couple weeks ago, it went just over that, maybe a couple feet over that seawall. So he's waiting to see what's going to happen this time around.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, because the way that the angle in which this storm came on shore, the winds were coming in the opposite direction out of the northeast, and I was wondering if you had blowout tides to the north, whereas you get the storm surge to the south of where the center actually comes on shore. I wondered if you had experienced any of that.
Yeah, right now I think the wind is blowing offshore. We're facing south, so south is that way to me. Obviously north is this way, so we're going to have to wait to see when the light comes out. Right now, obviously, things are still very dark. Let me shine my flashlight a little bit since James is panning this way. Yeah, so you can see some of the cars over here, some of the shrubbery, but yeah, we just don't know right now, as of this time, what that's going to look like. But like I said earlier, there's already roads that are very much flooded well before the hurricane even made close to landfall.
Okay, well, make sure that you're in a safe spot there, and we'll be checking back with you a little later, okay? Okay, let's go right back over to the radar quickly here, and just to kind of show you where he is. We were talking about how kind of lopsided the storm was. You can clearly see to the north, this is all the heavy rain, okay? And then to the south, where we are here in the southern part of Florida, there's nothing going on. We're catching a bit of a lull. But what's interesting is the forecast model guidance is suggesting that this feeder band here never really gets going. So maybe as this pushes into our neck of the woods, maybe we see nothing more than just a couple of showers. And from this point on, hopefully all that we're going to have to contend with, guys, will be the tropical storm force winds and the hurricane force winds as all of this passes by in Central Florida. Shannon, I'm going to...
Chris, thank you so much, and probably so helpful. You know, we're a hardy bunch here in South Florida and the Treasure Coast. We've been through this so many times. So, Chris, your breakdown of those wind fields from, the sustained wind fields, what we are going to be seeing when we know what to plan for, that is so helpful for us to wrap our mind. We've been through so much today already, but it is extremely helpful to know what to expect. So thanks for that breakdown, both from Ruskin and from Chris Sowers. Appreciate that.
And now we're going to go to Spanish Lakes. That's a community we've been focused on earlier today, especially after this tornado started touching down. John Barron is joining us live from there. John, what can you tell us?
Well, we just got done with an interview that we spoke with the St. Lucie County Sheriff, Keith Pearson. He told us a little about the scene that you're seeing here right now. As you can see, the Spanish Lakes community was hit heavily by those tornadoes, and many, dozens, if not maybe 100 crew members from all over. You can see Keith Pearson talking right now on the phone. He told us that this is a rescue mission right now. They're search and rescue, coming out and helping anybody in need. Now, we did talk to him a little bit more about how they're going about it. He said that they're tagging every single house and making sure that they've gone and checked on the community, make sure they've gone to those residents. If they've done so, they'll put like a flag in the yard, or they'll spray paint just a way so they know. He said it's not just going to be one check, they're going to do 2 or 3 just to make sure everybody is safe and sound. But as you can see right now, he told us that making sure that this community is safe, making sure that everybody understands that there is a way that they can go to a shelter if need be. They are busing people in and out, and we've seen people already with many of their suitcases coming up to the front. And of course, many residents that we have seen up here at the very front have actually been getting checked by EMS. So many people in bandages right now. So they know that obviously with hurricane making its way right now, with Hurricane Milton making its way, they're worried a little bit more about how this community is going to fare as we continue to see it making its way into this community. Now, he did tell us a little bit more about how many people have been injured and how many fatalities. All he told us was not a number. He told us that multiple people have died, as well as multiple injuries as well. So the sheriff is talking more about this, and maybe a little bit later on we'll get the chance to hear from him again. But we have been talking to him so far about what has happened here in this community, and he has told us that anybody that feels like their life is in danger or in jeopardy as we continue to see this hurricane make its way in, he says that there is a way that they will always make sure that everybody is out. They'll knock on the doors, they'll make sure they do a welfare check on anybody that needs it, and they've also mentioned the shuttles to any shelter nearby.
So John, you know, we can't confirm at this point how many fatalities out of this community. We heard Megan McRoberts had gotten word from Sheriff Keith Pearson a short time ago that in fact there were numerous fatalities. We can't get an indication, but certainly from the imagery behind you, we are seeing multiple ambulances. You said many injuries, and I apologize, we were speaking with our producer at the time. Did you say 100 homes in here were impacted in this one community?
No, not 100 homes. He did say dozens, but I was saying that there are dozens, if not 100 men and women right here from just all around the community that are on the ground right now helping out Spanish Lakes from all over. It's not just St. Lucie County, it's from EMS as well. He's been even talking about the governor having a chance to help out as well. So they're making sure that this is an area that is secure. They're out here making sure it is a search and rescue. He's specified that many times, effort right here in the Spanish Lakes community.
You know, John, I wanted to ask you, did he share at all what kind of injuries, the people that are being treated, what they were being treated for?
All I could say visually after we asked him, he did not give us any specifics, but when we did go over there, we were seeing a couple people with even bandages on their head, and we have seen a couple of people with their arms wrapped as well. So that's what we're seeing visually. We have not been confirmed on exactly what has happened, but just from us being up here and having a chance, that's what I've seen as far as those injuries. But people getting checked out right now from the EMS, and we continue. Actually, before we were even doing our live shot, 2 more EMS trucks were making their way through these streets. So obviously a heavily hit area here in Spanish Lakes.
And John, did you say, excuse me, I'm sorry, Tanya, but to your point, to Tanya's point, the damage, did he give any indication of what type of damage he was seeing in this community? Clearly it's pretty devastating.
Absolutely. When we first got in here, we just spoke to the sheriff, and we are actually about to make our way through from whatever areas they are allowing us to right now. They told us that this is the base, that this is the safest area to be. But when we first got here, we just spoke to the sheriff, and we're going to make our way through to visually see it ourselves as far as what damage there is. But the sheriff was just giving us just that little bit of a tidbit about how many injuries and things like that they're going through.
Now, John, I'm wondering, is this a senior community?
Yes, it is. Yes,
okay.
He said that this is a elderly community, so he was making sure that everybody understands that anybody in this area understands that, you know, those hurricane force winds will be making their way, obviously, as we just got that alert that the hurricane has just now made landfall over by Sarasota County as a Cat 3. So he's making sure that everybody understands that we're not out of this yet. There's still more coming.
John, you did a great job yesterday, and Tanya, if you have another question, please jump in. But as she asked her next question of you, John, you did a great job yesterday kind of walking and talking through scenes and really helping our audience get an understanding of your surroundings. This is such an active scene. Are you able to step out of the shot and just walk us through imagery-wise? And then, Tanya, your question for John
absolutely.
He kind of walks us through.
Absolutely. We're hard-lined a little bit. I'm going to get you to walk through what you can see. I want you to go ahead and walk, and I'll show you exactly what we're looking at. You can see fire and rescue, and having a chance to see, we got FWC here as well, and obviously a lot of them from St. Lucie County, but he was telling us that this is not just a St. Lucie County effort. This is from all over the state as we continue to see people making their way and helping out anybody that they can. And obviously as we continue on, you can see just a little bit more as we come in through the center, that you could see how many EMS trucks. I'm counting 3 right now just off to this side. Obviously the one right here dead center, but the other 2 over there just behind a law enforcement car. And you can see that many of them are working on residents from Spanish Lakes right now. They're working just underneath, as you can see under that overhang, and they've got water. And it looks like food as well, just a chance to kind of help people out for whatever they need. But yes, that question that you asked, this is a elderly community, So as we're making our way through, we've seen people walking up with their bags. Many people understanding, okay, we are not out of this, especially since those tornadoes have just made their way through. We understand the hurricane is on its way, but you can see that many of them were taking that warning seriously, coming up here, and we're taking that shuttle to a shelter. They understand that this is not something that you want to have a life or death situation. You want to make sure that you are in the best care possible, and that's exactly what St. Lucie County is doing for everybody here right now.
So, John, what I wanted to ask you, in a different community that we had done a story on, they had a set number and you could call if somebody sees, oh, my parent lives there, my mom or my dad live there, I can't get in touch with them, I want to make sure they're okay. Have they given you any kind of number that we can share with our viewers in case they want to get in touch with a loved one?
Heartbreaking images that you're zooming in on right now, John.
Yes,
Really. And good question on that.
I'm sorry, yes, so we did speak with him, and that number, I believe he did give us that number. I don't know it off the top of my head because we just had that interview with him, but they obviously are doing that welfare check for anybody right now, and of course, we even were having a hard time getting in contact people with the cell phone towers seeming to be effective because we were having a hard time getting a hold of you guys back just at the station, and that's something that we know obviously is a very hard point to be able to understand, that even just that contact, that communication, to be able to check on somebody is frightening. So we want to make sure that we can get you that number. We will get that here very soon, and that's exactly what the sheriff was talking about, is just making sure that welfare checks and the community understands that they are here for them.